A worldwide outage of water and electricity causes a dramatic drop in temperature by 100 degrees. While everyone else is faced with the challenges of survival, I find myself fortunate enough to be able to stay home and enjoy playing games by the comforting fire of my fireplace. However, this respite is short-lived as my neighbors begin stepping out of their houses, voicing their complaints about the extreme cold that threatens to freeze them to death. To make matters worse, no one had anticipated the need for instant noodles, leaving hunger to join the list of concerns. Yet, I am prepared for this dire situation, having stockpiled an impressive amount of supplies in my house. As fate would have it, the girl I have secretly admired for the past 18 years boldly approaches me, seeking food. Without hesitation, I proudly share a picture of juicy steak, accompanied by an exquisite bottle of wine, knowing that she recognizes it as top-grade Wagyu and $100,000 vintage. In response, she expresses her desire for a taste of the decadent meal. Chuckling at a request, I suggest that if she wants to indulge, she should venture to the supermarket herself. It turns out that a supernova explosion has caused a global ice age, and being the warehouse manager of a supermarket has allowed me to gather enough supplies to sustain myself for 2 years. Little did I know, however, that the girl would conspire with a group of neighbors to break into my house and steal all of my food. In their desperate attempt to ration provisions, they resort to drastic measures and consider turning to cannibalism. Shockingly, the girl admits gleefully that she tricked me into opening the door, disclosing her intention to claim one of my thighs as sustenance. Overwhelmed by despair, I feel as though death would be preferable to this horrifying fate. But as I open my eyes once again, I find myself reborn 3 months prior to the onset of the global freeze. Determined not to repeat my previous mistakes and fueled by a burning desire to seek justice for the pain endured in my previous life, I vow to never grovel or compromise again. Prioritizing the urgent need to gather supplies and construct a secure shelter before the world succumbs to its icy fate, I contemplate where to begin. Just as I ponder my next steps, a brilliant light flashes before my eyes, transporting me to a peculiar space. In this unfamiliar realm, an audacious idea manifests within my mind. If I could relocate an entire Walmart to this extraordinary place, eternal worries about food and drink would fade away. Just then, my stomach growls, reminding me of all the delectable dishes I may never have the chance to savor after the apocalypse. Motivated by this thought, I decide to visit the finest restaurant in the city, even if it costs me a staggering $50,000 per meal. In the midst of the impending apocalypse, where even a bowl of instant noodles can be a precious commodity, satisfying one's appetite will undoubtedly become an arduous task. In this scenario, the girl I have been infatuated with for 18 years happens to witness the scene. Standing beside her is her friend, who looks surprised by the situation. "Fan Yu Qing, you're so lucky," they exclaim. "The person chasing after you turned out to be a wealthy second-generation individual in disguise." Naturally, Fan Yu Qing seizes this opportunity and approaches me to strike up a conversation. "Shani, what a coincidence," she says. Hearing this, a sense of bitter laughter stirs within me. In my previous life, I was deceived by her facade of purity and innocence, ultimately becoming nothing more than soup in her bowl. While at this moment, I may desire nothing more than to get rid of this deceitful person, doing so would only land me in jail. I must bide my time, waiting for the end of the world to exact my revenge. Without hesitation, I pull out my bank card and ask the two of them if they would like to go shopping at the supermarket, cunningly planning to use them as free labor. As expected, they happily agree, claiming that being neighbors allows them to lend a helping hand. Little do they know that I intend to buy 2 full shopping carts and hand them over to the 2 individuals. After all, free labor shouldn't go to waste. The girlfriend's displeasure becomes evident at this sight, stating that since I am a grown man, I should contribute to the work. In response, Fan Yu Qing hastily chuckles, claiming to have done me a great favor and stating that I owe them a grand meal. A cold laughter resounds within me once more as I think about how well treated they will be when the extreme cold arrives, ensuring that not a single person can escape their fate. Just then, Auntie Lin from the neighborhood committee arrives with her grandson Little Jean. She kindly suggests that I should share some of the food with her. Upon hearing this, her 2-year-old grandson starts to take items from my shopping cart. I immediately grabbed them back, apologizing and explaining that I do not even have enough for myself. This action causes the child to throw a tantrum, shouting, "Big villain, give it back to me, or I will kill you." Coldly, I respond, saying, "Say that again, and believe it or not, I'll slap you to death." Instantly, the child begins to cry. However, Auntie Lynn refuses to back down, questioning my actions and suggesting that I am haggling with a child. She decides to buy a box of items herself, promising to transfer the money to me later and emphasizing that they are not trying to take advantage of me. I promptly displayed my payment QR code, making it clear that I expected immediate payment. Either they pay me now, or they can go to the supermarket themselves. This stance angered Auntie Lynn greatly. Once I returned home, Fan Yu Ching winked at me, reminding me not to forget to treat them. "Okay," I replied. After sending the two of them away, I stored all the purchased food in a hidden storage space. My next task was to construct an impenetrable steel fortress equipped with heating devices and medical supplies. While obtaining firearms would be ideal, I wasn't in a rush. There were still 90 days until the Ice Age arrived. During this time, I needed to sell off my property as quickly as possible. With money, I could always acquire what I needed. The following morning, I entered the hidden storage space to check the freshness of the food. Although I couldn't store live creatures, the food remained just as fresh as when I purchased it. I took out my phone and contacted the best local restaurant, booking 500 tables for a 3-day, 3-night banquet. However, the hotel manager informed me that the cost for such a large order would amount to no less than $1 million, requiring a deposit of $200,000 in advance. Without any hesitation, I swiftly transferred the $200,000. I then retrieved my property certificate and headed to the bank to mortgage it. After the apocalypse, money would become worthless, but mortgaging my property, combined with my savings, would only be enough to construct my safety bunker. I needed additional funds to purchase weapons and supplies. As I pondered on how to obtain more money, a man in a suit approached me and asked if I needed financial assistance. Delighted by this unexpected offer, I eagerly expressed my need for money. The man in the suit quickly introduced me to another individual. This person wasted no time and inquired about the amount I desired to borrow, cautioning me that the interest rate would be high. Hearing this, I rubbed my hands together with anticipation, dismissing any concerns about the interest rate. The priority is to raise the funds as quickly as possible. I proceeded to mortgage the house, which I had recently mortgaged, and my Mercedes-Benz as well. After the transactions, both parties felt satisfied with the deal. I mortgaged the $5 million house and a $300,000 car for $4 million. Ultimately, I would need to repay a total of $7 million. However, I viewed them as generous individuals who were essentially giving me money to spend. Subsequently, I visited the renowned War Dragon security company from my previous life. In the past, a second-generation wealthy individual had spent $2 billion to construct a top-level safe house and had become the emperor during the apocalypse. At that moment, a business manager approached me and inquired if I required assistance. I promptly expressed my intention to build a safe house for the apocalypse. The business manager then provided me with several plans to choose from. However, I was not satisfied with the options presented. I specified that the house should be reinforced with aviation materials, the balcony glass should be made of the highest strength bulletproof glass, and it should feature an air filtration system and a 360-degree blind spot-free monitoring system. I also requested that the front door be constructed from the same material as the bank's anti-French franc door. Additionally, I asked the manager to assist in acquiring some firearms. Upon hearing my requirements, the business manager was amazed and acknowledged that with these enhancements and the addition of weapons, the safe house would be nothing short of a fortress. The final plan would cost $8 million. After paying the deposit, I instructed them to commence work immediately and assured them that the balance would be settled within 3 months. Afterwards, I sought to acquire weapons for self-defense. I contacted the owner of a hunting club I knew and obtained a few sets of crossbows as weapons from him. Just then, the 500 tables of banquet that I had ordered also arrived in batches by truck. This attracted quite a few people from the neighborhood who were intrigued by the delivery truck from a 5-star hotel. It seemed that these several trucks of food would cost at least $1 million or so. After a while, the food for 500 tables filled my entire house. Without wasting any words, I efficiently stored them all into my otherworldly space. With all these delicious foods, combined with the ingredients I had previously ordered, I knew I wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of my life. The following day, the workers from the security company arrived to start building the safe house. This scene caught the attention of several neighbors who ridiculed me, questioning if I had taken the wrong medication. However, I didn't let their comments bother me. I knew that when the time comes and my plans bear fruit, they will realize who the real joke is. I then contacted the manager from the security company and purchased a portion of their warehouse supplies at twice the market price. Little by little, I transported all these items back home. My recent hoarding activities also drew the attention of Fond Gutching, who inquired if something significant was about to happen. She even went as far as saying that she had been thinking about me lately. I chose not to respond to her fake concern, which greatly frustrated her. In Johnny, this bootlicker dared to ignore me. Her curiosity about my sudden hoarding was dismissed by her best friend, who scoffed at the idea. If something big is happening, the country will definitely notify us. Just focus on catching Shang-Yi, she said. Half a month later, my safe house was successfully built by the security company. To ensure my safety, the manager installed a surveillance system on each floor. I was extremely satisfied with the outcome. Now, I just needed to wait for my last batch of supplies to arrive. Soon, several trucks of drinking water arrived in succession, catching the attention of Uncle Yu from the same neighborhood. "Little John, what are you doing with all these barrels of water?" he asked with a curious look. I thought of Uncle Yu as one of the few good people in my life and whispered to him, "The weather this year is going to be very unusual. It's best to stock up on supplies to prepare for extreme cold as soon as possible." Uncle Yu was initially skeptical, but upon seeing the serious look on my face, he believed me. In the following days, I made every effort to exchange all the money in my possession for various supplies. I knew there were only a few days left before the arrival of the extreme cold end days. I went back to the warehouse and invited all my colleagues for a cup of milk tea, which I had laced with sleeping pills to ensure they wouldn't interfere with my plan to move the entire Walmart warehouse into my otherworldly space. After shutting down the surveillance equipment, I quickly moved all the goods into the otherworldly space, emptying the entire warehouse in no time. As I was finishing up, I noticed a box in the corner that caught my attention. When I opened it, I discovered cold-resistant tech products that I had stocked a few days ago. These products were said to be able to withstand temperatures as low as -100 degrees. With these supplies, I felt confident that I had nothing to fear even in the face of the coldest ice age. I gave myself a dose of sleeping water and laid down on my colleague, falling asleep 2.5 hours later. It was my colleague who woke me up and exclaimed, "Boss, something crazy happened. Our warehouse has been emptied." I feigned surprise and jumped up, acting upset as I surveyed the empty warehouse. "What happened? How could all the supplies be gone?" I asked. Just then, the manager called, inquiring about the loss of the warehouse supplies. Learning that the entire warehouse had been emptied at once, the manager immediately accused me of being a mole stealing for myself. I gave an awkward smile and insisted, "Manager, what do you take me for? Besides, I'm not that capable. I think we should report this to the higher department immediately to avoid delaying the investigation time." When I hung up the phone, I quickly reassured my colleagues, "Everyone, don't be afraid. We're upright people, we have nothing to fear." Soon, all of us on duty were called to the police station for questioning, but nothing conclusive was revealed. The cops cautioned us not to leave Tanhai City recklessly. In order to assist with the ongoing investigation, the incident quickly made headlines in Tanhai City. It was unfathomable that hundreds of square meters of supplies had vanished without a trace in less than 3 hours. As heavy snow began falling from the sky, I recognized it as the harbinger of extreme cold and hastened back home 3 days later. The shockwave from a supernova explosion swept across the globe, resulting in a devastating disaster for the entire planet. Overnight, the temperature plummeted, and as I gazed at the heavy snow outside my window, I remained compassed. What was destined to occur had now come to pass. However, the response from the local community was lively, as it was the first time they had experienced such heavy snow in the southern region. While observing this with a calm demeanor, I reflected that for many, this might be their first encounter with snow and quite possibly their last. In my previous life, heavy snow had persisted for a full 3 months, with temperatures dropping lower and lower, resulting in the deaths of many who had not stocked up on food in advance. By the second day of the extreme cold weather, the heavy snow at the entrance of the residential area had piled up to half a person's height. Even with indoor heating turned up to the maximum, people still shivered in the cold. However, I, having prepared various heating equipment in advance, was able to sleep soundly. Yet, my peace was interrupted by an unexpected phone call from Fam Yusing. She cheerfully complained about the temperature drop and accused me of not informing her beforehand, leaving her freezing. Dismissive of her remarks, I abruptly ended the call, much to her chagrin. Subsequently, she audaciously texted me requesting food, to which I responded with laughter. She clearly still viewed me as a servant. I promptly sent her a picture of steak with wine. Fam Yusing immediately recognized it as top-tier Wagyu beef and a bottle of wine worth 100,000. She quickly expressed her desire to eat steak and drink wine, to which I responded with laughter, telling her to go buy it herself at the supermarket. Upon receiving my message, Fam Yusing became furious, but eventually relented. She had, after all, attempted to manipulate me, and I, already satiated and uninterested, began watching TV. Suddenly, the building's monitoring tablet emitted a noise and Auntie Len appeared on the screen, instructing everyone not to panic and rush for supplies. She assured them that the extreme weather would likely last only 2 or 3 days and that the neighborhood committee would provide assistance. She cautioned against hoarding supplies, warning of potential price increases, and threatening to report any hoarders to the authorities. However, a voice challenged Auntie Len's declaration about the duration of the heavy snow, questioning her responsibility if anything were to happen. Other homeowners chimed in, asserting their need to hoard supplies in case food ran out later. Auntie Len reassured them that the neighborhood committee would take responsibility and then directed a curse at me, accusing me of stirring up trouble. Unperturbed, I ignored her and returned to my secure home. A week passed, yet the heavy snow showed no signs of stopping. Meanwhile, I continued enjoying myself at home in the usual manner. Suddenly, a message arrived on my phone from Auntie Len in the group chat, summoning me by name to shovel snow. I immediately refused, pointing out that shovel efforts would be futile, given the heavy snowfall. It was clear to me that Auntie Len was simply trying to provoke a conflict, which only further incensed her. Subsequently, in the name of the neighborhood committee, she mandated that I go out and shovel snow, warning of consequences for those who defied the organization. After the snow disaster ended, in response, I coldly remarked on the authoritarian display. I immediately typed out a message questioning why Auntie Len wasn't targeting the affluent kids in the neighborhood and instead focusing on honest people like us. I suggested that she should ask Suha and Chen Zhenghao to shovel the snow, highlighting Zhenghao's authority as a construction project manager and Suha's wealthy background from my past life. This sparked a commotion in the homeowner group, with others echoing my sentiment. Auntie Len responded with curses, unable to back down, and ultimately called out the 2 individuals to shovel snow together. Upon seeing the message, Zhenghao and Suha lashed out with vulgar and disparaging remarks. Auntie Len, angered by this exchange, directed her frustration toward me, accusing me of trying to cause trouble and prevent anyone from shoveling snow. In response, I scoffed at her through a voice message and warned her against speaking further nonsense. This caused Auntie Len to back down, but soon after, a loud bang was heard from my front door. Zhenghao was outside, threatening me for my earlier remarks. In a swift move, I grabbed my crossbow and aimed at his shin, striking him with an arrow. As Zhenghao wailed in pain on the ground, he realized that I, despite appearing to be an honest person, was capable of ruthless action. Unbeknownst to Zhenghao, I was just getting started with my revenge. With temperatures plummeting to -100 degrees, his injured leg would surely not survive unless treated promptly. Left untreated, he would slowly succumb to the freezing weather. Despite the excruciating pain, Zhenghao stumbled into the elevator, never imagining that someone he had met only a few times wanted to end his life. This realization filled him with fear, prompting him to call for help. However, heavy snowfall had paralyzed the city and the hospital's ambulance was unable to reach him. Left with no option, Zheng Hao had to return home and tend to his wound himself. Fortunately, the severe cold had numbed his foot, allowing him to grimly pull the arrow out. He then made a threatening post in the homeowner group, vowing to come after me. Unfazed, I confidently retorted, provoking astonishment among the spectators in the group chat. For the first time, someone had dared to openly confront the local intimidator, Zheng Hao. Without hesitation, he mobilized his hundreds of followers, who swiftly converged at my door, armed and ready. Upon learning of the situation, the leader of the group approached with his followers, declaring that it would be the day of my demise. However, before he could act, his machete was swiftly disarmed, shocking the gangsters. It seemed this kid had made enemies with quite a few people, as his home was fortified like a fortress. Watching the chaos unfold on my security camera, I chuckled with disdain, taunting the frustrated bunch outside. Their enraged swearing and futile attempts outside my house sparked an idea within me. Without wasting a moment, I grabbed a water hose and swiftly connected it to the kitchen faucet. "Why so hot-headed? Let me cool you down," I chuckled to myself. The gangsters outside grew wary as they saw the door lock suddenly open, but their wariness turned into laughter when they realized it wasn't an arrow coming their way. Little did they expect that, in the next second, a powerful stream of cold water would be unleashed upon them. Soon, several of them were sprawled on the ground, frozen in their tracks, while only 3 managed to escape the icy assault. Observing the scene, satisfaction filled me. In this bone-chilling weather, cold water proved more lethal than any weapon. On the other side, the 3 escapees huddled together, shivering in fear. Chen Zhenghao glared at them, demanding an explanation for their failure. How could an entire group not even defeat a mere kid? Anxiously, the trio explained that I had outsmarted them by turning the front door into a burglar-proof fortress. They had tried relentlessly to break in, but only managed to scratch some paint off. To make matters worse, I had drenched them with freezing water. Hearing this, Chen Zhenghao's face darkened. He vowed that he wouldn't believe I could hide inside forever and ordered his men to keep a close watch on my door until I dared to show my face. Little did they know that the food stored in my house could sustain me not just for a lifetime, but for 10 lifetimes. Meanwhile, Uncle Yu and a few others attempted to clear the snow from the entrance of the residential area, hoping to create a path to the supermarket for food replenishment. However, their efforts couldn't match the speed at which the snow continued to fall. Frustrated, they eventually gave up and prepared to return. Watching this scene, I let out a sigh. Human strength simply couldn't compare to the magnitude of this disaster. While the TV reassured citizens that the country was launching a final offensive against the snow calamity, deep down, I knew that 90% of all living organisms worldwide would succumb to the freezing temperatures. To my surprise, my crush of 18 years was the first to send me a message. "Johnny, are you okay?" Reading her greeting, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. If it weren't for her consuming the most important part of my previous life, I would have continued to regard her as innocent and pure. So, I responded nonchalantly, "I'm fine." Then Fawn Yucking shamelessly asked me for something to eat, stating she would repay the favor later. Faced with my crush's request, I readily agreed. I sent her a picture of a lobster to tease her appetite, adding a mocking comment, "I'm already full." This visibly angered Fawn Yucking, and she decided to kick me out of her pond. At that moment, her confrontational best friend messaged me, "Why are you being so clueless? Fawn Yucking is really upset right now." Reading her message, I laughed once more. They were certainly adept at playing good cop, bad cop. The insolent friend persisted, "The snow won't last forever. Flatter her for a few meals and charm Fawn Yucking first. Wouldn't that be a big win?" Disdainfully, I ignored her and simply replied, "Oh," further infuriating her. How did this brown noser suddenly wise up? Fawn Yucking could only sigh, pondering the dramatic shift in my attitude toward her. At this point, her best friend suggested that if we lost one brown noser, it wouldn't be a big deal, as there were others still in their circle. This suggestion lit up Fawn Yucking's eyes, and she promptly called on the other sycophants. Before long, Xu Peng hurried over with large and small bags of supplies, claiming it was all the food he had left. Touched by his gesture, Fan Yuqing promptly praised him as a good person. Before Xu Peng could affirm his loyalty, her best friend promptly closed the door on him. As 3 days passed, heavy snow continued to fall without respite. Munching on a chicken leg and checking the time on my phone, I thought, the real drama is about to unfold. In the next moment, the entire neighborhood plunged into darkness, prompting neighbors to step out of their homes and inquire whether they had electricity. With the water and electricity cut off and the lack of functioning air conditioning, the temperature was dropping dangerously low. After finishing my chicken, I leisurely picked my teeth and switched on the generator I had prepared beforehand. Thankfully, having died early in my past life had spared me from freezing like the others. At that moment, Auntie Lin from the neighborhood committee was trembling as she held her grandson, clearly unprepared for the prolonged snowfall. A message popped up in the neighborhood group chat. It claimed that this was an extremely rare global blizzard, occurring once in 100,000 years, and we might be on the verge of a mass extinction event. Several major cities in the country had already been overwhelmed. The message urged everyone to stockpile more supplies. Auntie Lin was shocked after reading the message. She had never anticipated the severity of the snow disaster. In that moment, a plan formed in her mind. She decided to trick everyone into giving her their food before they received the news. Promptly, Auntie Lin posted a message in the owners group, assuring everyone that the disaster was temporary. She claimed that workers were actively repairing the water and power outages, and that officials had issued an order for the neighborhood committee to manage all property owners collectively. Those who didn't cooperate would be arrested and interrogated by the police. Chen Zhengheng, upon seeing the message, began to express his frustration and dissatisfaction. Despite having many subordinates, he dared not confront the police. Meanwhile, Auntie Lin continued in the group chat, stating that due to the severe impact of the blizzard on everyone's lives, the neighborhood committee had decided to collect supplies from each owner and distribute them evenly to help us all get through this crisis. Upon reading the message, I couldn't help but chuckle. It was the same old trick from my previous life. Suddenly, Auntie Lin sent me a private message. "Hey John, you usually manage a warehouse, so you must have stored a lot of food, right? Remember when you bought 3 truckloads of supplies last time? We're all in a bind now, and it's your turn to pitch in. Don't worry, we'll definitely pay you back after this crisis," she said. I couldn't help but smirk at her words. "You hypocritical old woman. You had your hand in my previous life's troubles too," I muttered as I prepared to reply. "Great timing. I've just run out of supplies at home," I replied cheekily with a voice message. "When you gather the supplies, Auntie Lin, be sure to save some for me." She nearly exploded after reading my message. How could this kid, who hoarded several truckloads of supplies, run out so soon? Auntie Lin realized that both she and her grandson relied on my stash. She swallowed her irritation and responded kindly, "John, this is a directive from the organization. You need to comply. Once the snow disaster is over, I'll make sure to report your good deeds to them." Seeing her response, I couldn't help but chuckle. If I hadn't died early in my previous life, maybe I would have believed her lies. With a sly grin, I retorted, "Auntie, I'm not fibbing. I really have nothing to eat at home. How about you lead by example and send me a few packets of instant noodles?" My response irked Auntie Lin, and she furiously fired back, "John, refusing to share your supplies is against the organization's directives. I'll report you for disciplinary action. I'm just a regular person, not a civil servant or part of any public institution. You're not an official either. Why do you act so self-important?" I quipped, escalating the tension. My words enraged Auntie Lin so much that she ended up smashing her old-fashioned phone. How dare this young brat talk to me like that? I'm a community leader, after all. Frustrated by my refusal, Auntie Lin turned her attention to other homeowners, determined to get what she wanted. "Doesn't matter who I deceive, as long as I get something," I mused, realizing 2 days had quickly passed. After Auntie Lin successfully persuaded many homeowners, they actually sent their supplies to her home. Observing this, I couldn't help but sneer internally. What a bunch of fools, believing in some sort of great Samaritan in this post-apocalyptic world. As chaos enveloped the world, lacking enough supplies, these individuals were merely waiting for their impending demise. Gradually, many homeowners started tagging Auntie Lynn in the group chat, reminding her of the promise for fair distribution. "You said the supplies would be shared equally. We've run out of food at home. Start distributing some to us," they demanded. Yet, Auntie Lynn simply scoffed at these messages. "What a bunch of idiots. These supplies were obtained through my hard work. How could I give them away so easily?" she muttered. Suddenly, her phone rang, displaying Qin Jinghao's name. Auntie Lynn broke into a cold sweat, wondering what he wanted with her. On the call, Qin Jinghao's voice was cold and stern. "Auntie Lynn, you've got quite the method. You've actually redirected everyone's supplies to your home." Hearing this, Auntie Lynn attempted to feign innocence, claiming it was arranged by the community committee and she was simply performing her duties. Qin Jinghao chuckled and revealed the truth. "That's perfect. Over 10 of us are waiting for you to distribute the supplies." Auntie Lynn coughed lightly and mentioned that many supplies hadn't been sorted and some homeowners hadn't submitted theirs yet, making it impossible to begin distribution. In the next moment, the local strongman, Qin Jinghao, along with his followers, barged into her house. Auntie Lynn's face turned pale. "How dare you break into a civilian's house? Is there no law anymore?" she protested. In response, Qin Jinghao swiftly delivered a slap and accused her of deceiving everyone's supplies. "Today, I'll act in the name of justice," he proclaimed. Meanwhile, I watched the scene unfold on the surveillance, cheerfully munching on a sausage. The impending dogfight was on the verge of starting, and a brilliant idea struck me. If watching alone is fun, sharing it with others would be even better, I thought, relishing in the potential drama. With excitement, I promptly posted the surveillance video in the homeowners group chat, anticipating their reactions. Meanwhile, Qin Jinghao and his crew had already forced their way into Auntie Lynn's house, commanding his subordinates to seize all the food, leaving nothing behind. As the chaos ensued, Auntie Lynn desperately clung to Qin Jinghao's leg, pleading for mercy, emphasizing that some of the supplies were her own stash, critical for her grandson and herself to survive. Disregarding her pleas, Qin Jinghao callously dismissed her concerns. "That's none of my business. Get out of here," he retorted, forcibly kicking Auntie Lynn away. In response, her grandson, stunned by the scene, grabbed a small knife, seeking revenge for his grandmother. He managed to stab one of the intruders, a punk with yellow hair, causing him immense pain, leading to an awkward kick in response. This spectacle elicited laughter from the other thugs, amused by Yellow Hair's unexpected reaction to the pain. However, instead of displaying sympathy, Qin Jinghao sneered, attributing it to Auntie Lynn's deceitful actions. He claimed they were merely dispensing justice. On the other side, numerous homeowners witnessing the scene expressed their support. "Ha ha! Serves the liar right. Such strong measures are necessary against swindlers like her," they cheered, lauding Qin Jinghao's approach. Reading these messages, I chuckled. "You people really don't understand the crux of the problem," I mused. "Today, Qin Jinghao might break into Auntie Lynn's house. Tomorrow, it could be yours." However, I distanced myself from the situation, confident in the security of my 2-meter-thick steel door, impervious even to a tank. Before long, Auntie Lynn desperately sought assistance within the homeowner group. "Does anyone have hemostatic drugs, anti-shock medications, and antibiotics? My grandson was injured by Qin Jinghao, and Dr. Shu urgently needs these medications for surgery." Her plea echoed in the group. As I read this, a spark of recognition lit up within me. Dr. Shu was a savior-like figure in the previous world, and fortunately, our neighborhood had a medical professional to save her grandson's life for the time being. Continuing her plea in the group, Auntie Lynn promised both gratitude and humility to anyone willing to provide the medicine. Unfortunately, her plea was met with ridicule from many homeowners. "So you plan to beg for mercy in a chat group? Dr. Shu, a kind-hearted soul, saved your grandson. Why should we help you?" they mocked. "After deceiving us of our supplies, you still have the audacity to ask for our help." Observing this, I couldn't help but sigh. It seemed like karma was catching up to Auntie Lynn. Moreover, the relentless snowstorm had continued for over a week, paralyzing life outside. Even if the boy were to be saved, how long could everyone last without food? The snow outside the community had almost reached the first floor, and the news revealed that this was a global snowstorm that only occurred once every 100,000 years. The severity of the snow disaster was beyond anyone's predictions. Another week flew by in a flash, and the entire world was almost buried under the snowstorm. In some northern cities, temperatures plummeted to -100 degrees Celsius. Tragically, attempts by residents to evacuate southward resulted in freezing deaths along the roads. Within the homeowner group, Auntie Lynn began playing the morality card once again. "My dear grandson has been hungry for 2 days. He's just a child. Are you really going to stand by and watch him die?" she pleaded, expressing her willingness to pay a high price for supplies. Upon witnessing this, homeowners began inflating prices, with the last pack of instant noodles fetching a whopping $2,000. I chuckled at their lack of seriousness in facing the apocalypse. In due time, they'd find paper money too cumbersome even for toilet use. As a second-generation affluent individual with business acumen, Suhao commenced hoarding supplies at steep prices, recognizing that money would soon become as worthless as scrap paper in this apocalyptic world. He aimed to dispose of it while it still held some value. At that moment, a single mother in the group issued a desperate plea for help, stating that she and her daughter were on the brink of starvation, seeking assistance from everyone. My laughter bubbled up seeing this scene. In my past life, this woman and her daughter managed to survive for a substantial duration. This seemingly simple lady might have some hidden depths. 10 days flew by swiftly, and I was comfortably enjoying my time at home when the phone on the table suddenly rang. Glancing at the caller ID, I smirked coldly. It seemed that this person couldn't bear it any longer. I answered the video call, sarcastically remarking, "You both look leaner after our absence." Behind me, seeing the food, "You're drooling. Why do I still have so much food? Johnny, did you hoard it last time? And why are you sweating in this -100-degree weather?" Grinning, I responded, "That's because I've set up a fireplace at home. It's incredibly warm. I feel like going for a run outside." Hearing this, Fanju Ching immediately tried to butter me up, requesting to come over for a shower. Inside, I scoffed, realizing they were trying to take advantage of my preparation. So, without any hesitation, I rejected a request, even adding a sarcastic taunt. "With temperatures at -100 degrees, make sure to keep warm." Fanju Ching was instantly enraged by my words, retorting, "Johnny, don't go too far. We're freezing and starving. If you won't help, at least refrain from making sarcastic comments." My laughter resounded. They still assumed I was an easy mark. If they wanted food, they should seek the rich kid. Besides, we had no relation, so why should I assist them? I smoothly ended the video call, leaving Fanju Ching seething on the other side. She never anticipated that I would take the path of counter-tackling bootlickers. Just then, her best friend stepped in with some candid words. "Johnny's quite resourceful. It's your missed opportunity. We could have been enjoying the luxuries at Johnny's place right now. He's way stronger than that so-called rich second generation. If I knew you'd fail, I'd have taken the chance myself. Now, everything's out in the open, and we're left with nothing." Fanju Ching was already infuriated by these remarks. Lin entered the scene, seething at the continued support for me. "You still siding with Johnny? I'll take you down." Soon, the two engaged in a fierce wrestling match on the bed. Meanwhile, the government, unable to conceal news of the snow disaster any longer, made a televised announcement. To meet electricity needs, there would be a 1 to 2 hour power supply window daily, though the voltage would be sufficient only for low-power devices. With all major power plants shut down, electricity was scarce. People were urged to use it sparingly to prevent widespread outages. The homeowner group buzzed with activity again. Did you see the news? Turns out the online rumors are true. Just as tensions were high, someone offered to sell instant noodles for $5,000 a pack. Any takers? Witnessing this, I couldn't decide whether to laugh or despair. Despite the apocalypse, they were still willing to trade life-saving supplies for worthless paper. With everyone hungry, who would care about useless currency? On the other side, after 2 minutes of wrestling, Fanju Ching and her friend finally settled down. Since the gentle approach failed, they opted for a more aggressive stance. Fanju Qing grabbed her phone and contacted her top bootlicker, spinning a wild tale about how Shani attempted to sully her reputation just because he had food. Xu Peng became instantly furious upon hearing this. "Shani's a real scoundrel. If I don't take this guy down, I'll be failing my bootlicker status." Upon seeing Xu Peng's interest, Fanju Qing immediately got cozy with him. "Hey, little Xu Peng, let's figure out how to take over his house, then we can live together, alright?" Xu Peng agreed without hesitation, but they needed to arm themselves first. The trio, each wielding a kitchen knife, appeared at my doorstep. Xu Peng, concealing the knife, knocked on my door. "Hey Shani, it's me, Xu, your colleague. Could you spare some food? I'll trade you for fever medication." Little did they know, I had witnessed the entire scene through the surveillance camera. Seeing their weapons, I brimmed with anger. "Do you really think you can harm me? A tiger doesn't need to bare its teeth to be fierce." I grabbed a hose, connected it to the tap, and prepared to give them a chilling shower at -100 degrees. Suddenly, a heap of waste caught my eye, sparking an idea. I approached the door, shouting, "Don't worry, I'll ensure everyone gets enough to eat." Believing I was about to open the door, they eagerly raised their weapons. But the next moment, a pile of feces sprayed through the small window onto them. Feng Yuqing recognized it immediately and began to retch, while Xu Peng, infuriated, demanded I come out to face him. Amused, I retorted, "Don't say I didn't give you a chance. If you've got the guts, come in." Enraged, Xu Peng raised his kitchen knife, striking my front door, only to injure his hand, while the door remained unscathed. Witnessing this, I chuckled. "My 2-meter-thick security door isn't something you can break so easily. I've stockpiled as much as a Walmart warehouse in my house. I'm not bothered by their watch outside. Even if I never step out in my next life, what can they do?" Abruptly, I was jolted awake by the sound of a gunshot. Even though I knew the dark side of human nature would be exposed in the post-apocalyptic world, the sudden sound of gunshots startled me. The fact that someone in our community had a gun was alarming. In a panic, I grabbed my tablet and quickly checked the surveillance footage to find out what was happening. It turned out that Xin Zhenghao and his group were going around robbing houses, while most residents were outside digging snow for water due to the cut-off water supply. Xin Zhenghao took advantage of this opportunity to loot supplies since there wouldn't be many people around. With supplies running low, even if we resorted to eating accumulated snow as food, it wouldn't sustain us for long. After stealing from others' homes, Xin Zhenghao didn't hesitate to assert his authority in our homeowners group chat by posting intimidating photos along with a declaration. "From now on, I am Xin Zhenghao, and I'm in charge of this building. Anyone who opposes me will face dire consequences." Seeing this display of power only made me sigh deeply. It was evident why Xin Zhenghao had been successful before the apocalypse. He relied on ruthless tactics like these. However, his ammunition and followers were limited, they couldn't possibly stand against all residents united together. Just then, I received an invitation to join a new group chat, where several homeowners passionately denounced Xin Zhenghao's actions and emphasized the need for unity against such tyranny. They believed that despite him having a gun, he couldn't stop all of us if we stood together. However, when discussions arose about when exactly we should take action against him, carefully planning it out beforehand, some individuals hesitated or seemed reluctant. Reading these messages made me chuckle involuntarily, because those who spoke loudly often lacked conviction when it came down to taking action themselves. A lot more talk than actual courage displayed among them. At that moment, Uncle Yu, a retired veteran, chimed in on the chat saying, "We can't allow Xin Zhenghao to continue like this, otherwise, we're all doomed. If you are all scared or hesitant, I can take charge and lead the way. Let's all rise together." Uncle Yu's words received a lot of support from the homeowners. Some offered weapons while others suggested tactics, proposing to ambush Xin Zhenghao as he was just one man. Witnessing this overwhelming support, Uncle Yu continued speaking. He pointed out that Xin Zhenghao had around 5 or 6 people with him and mentioned that his presence alone would not be enough to ensure everyone's safety. We needed a group of young men, at least a dozen or so, to protect us. Just when everyone was eagerly preparing to volunteer for this cause, a woman suddenly spoke up in the chat room. She accused Andy Lin of tricking them out of their supplies and raised concerns about Uncle Yu potentially doing the same if they followed him blindly into surrendering. In her view, what about those who were old, weak women and children? She strongly disagreed with leading everyone towards surrender. Hearing her objections made me want to give her a piece of my mind because she had caused gender conflicts in our past life too. In this post-apocalyptic world where trust is scarce, if we can't rely on retired veterans like Uncle Yu, then who can we trust? The homeowners became divided into two factions. Radicals who believed it was crucial for us to unite against Shin Zhenghao immediately, and conservatives who suspected Uncle Yu might be working as a spy for our enemies. The conservative faction argued that anyone willing could become the scapegoat, which only served to prolong discussions between both sides for hours on end. It frustrated me deeply witnessing this repetitive scene, reminiscent of my past life experiences where these conservatives kept evading responsibility, resulting in countless homeowners being brutally killed by Shin Zhenghao. However frustrating it may have been though didn't change the fact that I still enjoyed eating curry rice with corns, green peppers, tomatoes, chicken. Unrelated matters shouldn't divert attention away from imminent dangers lurking ahead. Such scenes were merely time-sensitive issues. In a specific incident, Shin Zhenghao, armed with his gun, continued to raid houses without mercy even towards his own followers. Anyone who dared resist would face immediate execution by his single shot. Deep down he knew that without the power of this gun in hand, these subordinates might not necessarily obey him, thus he ordered them to collect all bodies, as if they were mere backup food reserves. Realizing this sinister plan from surveillance footage left me no choice but to find an opportunity and confront this guy directly. The next morning brought a distress call for help from Lieutenant. Ask Uncle Yu to come save her since he's a retired army man. As the impact on the door behind her intensified, Lieutenant grew increasingly anxious. I'm in trouble. None of you will be able to escape, she said, only to witness the door behind her shatter open suddenly, and she was dragged out unceremoniously. Her ordeal didn't elicit sympathy, instead, it drew mockery from the radical faction. Serves you right for being a turtle. Your retribution has come, mocked the radicals. On the other side, Fan Uching and her friends were visibly nervous witnessing this scene. If they didn't devise a plan soon, they feared they would be next. In a moment of determination, Fan Uching devised a strategy. Spread the news that Johnny, that guy, had hoarded a substantial amount of supplies and then unite everyone to seize his house. I was promptly added to a mutual aid group chat. Fan Uching directed a message at me in the group chat. Johnny, it's too dangerous to live separately now. Your door at home is particularly sturdy. We need a secure base. I hope you can join our team. Everyone must unite. Otherwise, Chen Zheng Hassan will deal with you. Upon seeing this message, I couldn't help but laugh. They were attempting the same scheme as in the previous life. I responded nonchalantly, I'm fine. I'm used to living alone in this modest 150 square meter house with heating and electricity. This response triggered an explosion in the group chat. Old John, don't be short-sighted. Unity is crucial now, retorted the group, with Fan Uching echoing support. Saving one life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. You can save 7 people now, making it a 48-story pagoda. Ignoring their persuasive words, I abruptly left the group chat, leaving Fan Uching and the others dumbfounded. They wondered when this bootlicker had evolved into a defiant figure. Soon, they discussed strategies to capture my fortress. A man in glasses suggested a direct, forceful entry, while another with brown hair boasted of expertise in picking locks. They collectively agreed and gathered at my door, beginning to pry the lock open. They had even prepared a few umbrellas to shield themselves from the cold water. However, brown hair, proud of his lock-picking skills, soon realized that my lock was impervious to his attempts. Watching this scene through the surveillance camera, I smirked inwardly. My 5-layer reinforced security door rivaled the anti-theft level of a bank vault. Yet, an ordinary lock-picker aimed to crack it. That's when I activated the high-voltage electric defense feature. Brown hair was shocked and pleaded for help. Please, help me. But before long, he collapsed to the ground, emitting a puff of black smoke. Fan Jiqing, standing nearby, was stunned by the sight. Brown hair's hands were still stuck to the door due to the high voltage electricity, yet I felt no guilt witnessing this. Suddenly, Glasses Man pointed at the door and cursed, "Jianji, you damned beast. Come out. Lu Dao is dead because of you. Don't you owe us an explanation?" I chuckled in response. "You came to pry my door, your intentions are clear." I shook my head. Loading my crossbow, I warned, "Isn't it better to stay alive?" Without hesitation, an arrow flew out of the small window, striking Glasses Man's left arm. Shocked by my ruthless actions, Chopin hurriedly assisted Glasses Man. They hadn't anticipated my willingness to take aggressive measures. As they moved away, 2 more arrows shot out, accurately hitting Chopin and another neighbor. Fan Jiqing and the other 2 women panicked and fled, fearing they would be the next targets. Once they reached their lodgings, the 3 injured men howled in agony. In such extreme cold, without timely treatment, the wounds would become necrotic, exacerbated by the rusty arrows lacking antibiotics or medicines. They found themselves in a helpless situation, awaiting an inevitable slow death. Glasses Man regretted his actions deeply, realizing the severity of the situation. In the midst of this, Chopin's cousin, a man named Wang, confronted Fan Jiqing and slapped her. "It's all your fault. You said Zhang Yi was the strongest. Why are there crossbows now? You stood so far away earlier. Did you know about this all along?" Fan Jiqing appeared distressed. "I didn't know he would use them this time." Chopin swiftly intervened, protecting Fan Jiqing. "Stop, cousin. It's not her fault. I can vouch for her." Witnessing her cousin's transformation from a bootlicker to a critic, one man felt disheartened. Little did she realize that she was the fastest to run away from the situation. Now, their only hope was to seek help from Dr. Zhu in the community. After some time, Dr. Zhu arrived at Wang Men's house to assess the wounds of the injured. Upon inspecting the wounds, she looked surprised. "This wound is similar to the one I treated on Chen Zhenghao earlier, a wound from an arrow." Dr. Zhu explained the severity of the wounds, noting their depth and the rustiness of the iron arrows. Without proper equipment and antibiotics, surgery's success rate was less than 20%, leaving them no viable treatment option. Upon hearing this, Wang Men couldn't help shedding tears. Zhu Peng and her had a deep bond from growing up together. Desperate, she pleaded with Dr. Zhu to save her cousin. However, Dr. Zhu expressed the risk of worsening the situation by attempting to remove the arrows without medication. Fan Jiqing stepped forward, remembering a recent delivery of drugs to Zhang Yi's house. She suggested seeking help from him, as there might be ample antibiotics available. Glasses Man became hopeful, urging her to find Zhang Yi and hold him responsible for his injury. However, Wang Men interjected, "He almost killed us just now. How could he possibly give us medicine to save our lives?" Fan Jiqing remained indifferent, stating, "We only wanted to take over his house. We didn't harm him. Besides, we're the ones injured. We're in the right here." Zhu Kaier was left speechless at their justification. "You guys deserve to be shot," she retorted. Suddenly, Wang Men pointed at Fan Jiqing, asserting, "Then you'll be in charge of getting the medicine. Zhang Yi wants to pursue you. You're the most suitable person to handle this." Even Zhu Peng, known as the Liquor King, chimed in, stating, "Fan Jiqing, this time, you'll have to trouble Zhu Kaier. I can only protect you once my arrow wound is healed." Fan Jiqing reluctantly agreed, though lacking confidence due to my previous response. She attempted to contact me, pleading for help for Liu Tao and Zhu Peng. Upon hearing her plea, I laughed dismissively. What if they die? Everyone meets their end sooner or later. Do you really think you'll survive this snow disaster? I emphasized the dire situation they were in. Fan Jiqing sobbed, admitting her faults and seeking forgiveness. Wang Men, taking the phone, appealed to me, "Zhang Yi, show some compassion. You might need us in the future." Amidst their pleas, I laughed again, explaining my intentions behind using rusty arrows. "I never intended to meet you again. How do I know you won't turn against me?" Wang Men tried to argue their innocence, but I cut her off. Decent citizens wouldn't aim to seize someone else's home. However, assisting you isn't out of the question. Given my 18-year infatuation with Fan Jiqing, I might consider allowing her to come over alone. Excited, Fan Jiqing eagerly seized the phone, proclaiming, "Zhang Yi, brother, I'm in. I'm all yours now." Her best friend, Lin Keening, also eagerly moved closer, pleading to join. Fan Jiqing, However, rebuffed Lin Keaning, asserting, "Zhang Yi only wants me. You stay here and behave yourself." Before she finished speaking, Wang Men slapped her across the face, calling her out for causing trouble and trying to escape. The bootlicker King Zhu Ping was equally shocked, questioning Fan Jiqing's sudden change, reminding her of her previous stance against me. Fan Jiqing argued back, defending her desire for a better life and claiming that true love is about wishing happiness for the one you love. She emphasized my abundant supplies compared to his few bags. This revelation devastated Bootlicker, conceding defeat in the love battle. Fan Jiqing left without a glance, prompting Lin Keaning to throw her to the ground, resentful of her reaping all the benefits. Wang Men joined in, scolding Fan Jiqing for her selfishness, accusing her of not considering everyone else's situation. Observing their quarrel, Zhu Kaier intervened, reminding them that their wounds were only temporarily treated and that they needed proper medication. Glasses Man then proposed a plan: expose my fully stocked house to everyone in the building based on the video I had shared. If we can't handle him, someone else will. We'll have to reap the benefits from the sidelines. But upon hearing this, Fan Jiqing panicked, rejecting the idea, worried it might disrupt her chance for a comfortable life with me. Wang Men moved to slap her, but was intercepted by Zhu Peng, who pledged his genuine love for Fan Jiqing, expressing confidence that she would eventually reciprocate his feelings. Fan Jiqing, though tempted to lash out at the bootlicker, decided to focus on a more pressing matter. She quickly posted tempting photos of delicious food in the homeowners group, emphasizing how I had lavish meals, while everyone else struggled to find adequate sustenance. This sparked outrage among the homeowners, some trying to morally compel me to distribute supplies, others making desperate offers just to live in my house. Observing their pleas, I calmly rejected their demands, uninterested in sharing my supplies, given their past attempts to break into my home. Now that the situation had reversed, I contemplated how to handle them this time. This response left the bootlicker king and others dumbfounded, questioning whether I feared their unity against me. Meanwhile, some began blaming me in the group chat, urging me to atone for my supposed sins by sharing supplies with everyone. Furthermore, living alone has no purpose. Young people should embody a spirit of contribution. Observing their incessant bickering, I found no interest in continuing the conversation. As I glanced at the snow outside the window, I murmured, "Being homebound every day gets dull. It's time I went out for a stroll." Luckily, I still had a few snowmobiles tucked away in my pocket dimension. Once I handled this group, it might be time to explore the outside world. At that moment, my phone chimed with a distress call from Dr. Zhu Kier, stating that our home's medical supplies were entirely depleted. Her image from my previous life flashed in my mind, reminding me of her demise after selflessly aiding Xiao Li Mei and her daughter. Despite my favorable impression of her, I hesitated to immediately offer help. Wary of potential dangers posed by attractive women, I didn't want to risk my life again after just getting another chance. I replied to Zhu Kier, agreeing to provide supplies, but only in exchange for something from her. She readily consented to serve as my private medical assistant. Yet, I didn't accept her proposal outright. Instead, I proposed a condition providing her with medicine and food in return for her acting as a spy on our neighbors on the verge of collapse. The choice was now hers: follow the masses as a bystander or conspire with me against them. Upon receiving my message, Zhu Kier fell silent, pondering her decision. If she chose to side with me, she'd face the wrath of all the homeowners in the building. Unbeknownst to her, my house had become an impenetrable fortress, impervious even to a tank's assault. I did all this as a pretext to test her loyalty. At that moment, Glasses Man issued a final ultimatum, demanding the surrender of my supplies. His message brought a sly smile to my lips. I had reached my limit with him. I replied cheerfully, refusing to share even a morsel of my supplies, provoking Glasses Man's anger. He threatened, saying I had brought this upon myself, and announced their operation to eliminate me in a chat group, assuring they only needed half the supplies and wouldn't harm anyone after getting them. Meanwhile, Zhu Kier, after considering my terms, finally agreed, understanding she couldn't survive long alone in this chaotic world. Later, I received a warning from Zhu Kier and Uncle Yu about the imminent full-scale attack by Glasses Man and his gang at 2:30 a.m. I wasn't fazed, instead, I was curious about the chaos they'd create. Despite Zhu Kier's plea for a plan, I just laughed and armed myself, knowing that having ample firepower diminishes fear. I warned her not to follow their lead and prepared to watch the spectacle unfold. At 2:30 a.m., armed individuals marched towards my house, aiming to eliminate me. They surrounded the entrance, demanding I come out. If you wish to live, this is your final chance. I witnessed this scene through the surveillance and couldn't stifle a laugh. Courtesy was not on my agenda. I activated the high-voltage device. As a few individuals attempted to break in, they were electrocuted, turning into charred figures with black smoke billowing from their bodies. The sight horrified the others, who desperately sought to flee, only to encounter Chen Zhengao and his gang, armed and blocking their way. Chen Zhengao aimed his gun, warning them of dire consequences if they persisted. Undeterred, the strategist, Glasses Man, tried to rally them, claiming inside was a warm fireplace and endless food. This encouraged the residents to take up makeshift weapons and relentlessly pound my door, driven by the promise of sustenance. Hearing the rhythmic pounding, I retrieved a large speaker and decided to entertain them with a battle song, further igniting their fervor. Despite their relentless efforts, after half an hour, they were fatigued and realized their futile attempts had barely scratched the surface of the door. Smarty Pants, recognizing it as a bank vault-grade door, proclaimed its impregnability even against a tank. Their hopes sank as they pondered how to open such a sturdy door. Unless we can find the world's top locksmith, there's no chance of opening it without the key, Smarty Pants explained, his voice filled with frustration. As he spoke, I quietly approached the door with my crossbow, murmuring, "So professional," and swiftly shot an arrow. The sight of Smarty Pants getting shot left the other residents in the hallway in a state of panic. Shangyi actually has weapons. Glasses Man and Chen Zhengao didn't even tell us, they exclaimed. Some of the slower neighbors, unable to react in time, fell victim to my arrows, lying scattered on the floor. I felt no remorse if they sought my life. There was no need for me to hold back. Amid the chaos, Glasses Man attempted to calm everyone down, proposing to break through the wall, assuming the steel door might have a concrete brick wall. Energized, some neighbors rallied their strength and vigorously attacked the wall, while Glasses Man continued to encourage them. Soon, cracks began to surface, eliciting hope among them. However, the realization struck hard when a clang echoed upon a forceful impact of steel plate lay hidden beneath the wall's surface. Disheartened but not willing to give up, they continued hammering different parts of the wall in a desperate attempt to find a weakness. Observing their futile efforts, I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. The outer walls of my fortress were reinforced with half-meter thick high-quality steel. Their hammers were useless against such robust construction. As the neighbors started to comprehend the extent of my preparedness for the apocalypse, despair spread among them. Glasses Man, growing angrier as he contemplated the situation, criticized me for my apparent selfishness and disregard for everyone's lives. Some broke down in tears at the overwhelming despair. Amidst the chaos, Chen Zhengao stepped forward and cynically remarked, "Why cry? His walls are made of fine steel. But what about the ceiling and the floor? We'll split up and start tearing the place down." I refused to believe Zhang Yi could have built a fortress. The neighbors were reinvigorated upon hearing this plan. They scoured every inch of my house, hammering with relentless force. Observing this on surveillance, I chuckled inwardly. Chen Zhengao displayed some intellect, but it wasn't enough. After an intense hammering session, they fell into despair once again. It turned out I indeed constructed my house into an impenetrable fortress. Without power tools, breaking through this steel wall would take years of non-stop hammering, something they clearly couldn't afford in their current state without sustenance or rest. The hunger pangs of a neighbor who hadn't eaten for 2 days stirred thoughts of meat in his mind. He and another neighbor awkwardly exchanged glances, silently acknowledging their shared hunger. Meanwhile, Glasses Man was despondent, pondering if they were destined to perish in this apocalypse. He criticized me for not making sacrifices for everyone's welfare. Then came a glimmer of hope from Glasses Man. He remembered my balcony's floor-to-ceiling windows from the renovation. Maybe they could break in from there. Everyone's spirits were uplifted at this prospect, refusing to believe I would fortify my windows. As a group, they made their way towards my balcony using planks. Soon, they were outside my window, yelling and threatening me. However, their attempts to break the supposedly weak glass proved fruitless, leading to their frustration mounting outside my impenetrable window. Their futile efforts didn't go unnoticed by me. Sipping my coffee calmly, I mocked, "You think you're smart." I didn't leave them off the hook easily, knowing their perseverance could only lead to more disappointment. I casually strolled to the kitchen and retrieved a homemade Molotov cocktail. "Since it's so cold, let me warm you up a bit," I quipped. Placing the Molotov cocktail through a small window in the room, a hole instantly appeared in the balcony's ceiling. By the time they realized what it was already too late. Flames engulfed one of the neighbors, causing him intense agony. Unable to bear the pain, he leaped off the balcony. Witnessing the horrors, some neighbors, now remorseful, pleaded for mercy, recalling how they mistreated me in their past lives. But they were blocked by Glass's man and his group, desperate to avoid the fire. Tragically, some fell from the building, and those trapped were charred in the blaze. Observing this, Glass's man and his group showed no mercy, huddling around the fire for warmth. Starving and humbled, the neighbors dropped their weapons, crossed back to my floor-to-ceiling windows, and begged for help, admitting their mistakes. Listening to their pleas from outside, I sighed deeply. This makes me feel terrible. When I'm upset, I have a peculiar habit I want to eat. Saying this, I began eating noodles from my bowl, causing the people outside to drool in longing. They expressed a yearning for soup. Realizing the unpredictability of human behavior in this apocalypse, I devised a new strategy. Addressing the pleading group outside, I assured them that I wasn't a cold-hearted person. "I'll give you a chance. Bring me Qin Jianghao's head, and I'll provide these noodles for a week, enough for each meal." The group's hopeful gaze shifted excitedly towards Qin Jianghao in the neighboring building. In the eyes of the hungry neighbors, Qin Jianghao appeared as a tempting roast chicken, a potential solution to their week-long food and drink worries. Feeling the weight of their ill-intended stares, Qin Jianghao shivered, sensing a looming threat. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was always targeted by villains, likened to being roasted alive. As they charged toward him, Qin Jianghao brandished his gun, effectively deterring their rash actions. Suddenly, he received a bounty notice I had circulated in a homeowners group chat, promising a week's worth of food to anyone who could eliminate him. Realizing the reason behind the hostile glares, Qin Jianghao swiftly fled the scene. The following day, several neighbors set up an ambush for Qin Jianghao. Though he was armed, his limited bullets and my impregnable safehouse made his situation dire. Their previous attempts to breach my fortress resulted in the loss of 40 to 50 people. Faced with the looming threat of starvation, they saw Qin Jianghao as a vulnerable target. Aware of his predicament, Qin Jianghao urgently instructed his subordinates to gather snow for consumption. In the eyes of the property owners, he seemed like a defenseless lamb. Reacting swiftly, two neighbors who had been lying in wait attacked with kitchen knives. Despite warnings from his subordinates, they were too late to defend against the sudden assault. Qin Jianghao managed to shoot down the assailants, swiftly ordering his men to bring the bodies inside, worrying not just about the unexpected attackers, but also about the scarcity of food. Despite his swift reaction to fend off the attackers, he ended up with a long cut from a kitchen knife. Gravely injured, he asked his subordinate for help while dialing Dr. Zhu to treat his wound. Soon, Dr. Zhu arrived with a medicine kit, but she made it clear she wouldn't help for free. Qin Jianghao offered her food, summoning a basin of chicken feet. However, upon seeing the contents, Dr. Zhu felt repulsed and refused to eat it, opting for death over such a meal. Qin Jianghao, knowing the value of a doctor in the post-apocalyptic world, attempted to touch her cheek, indicating he would save her for last. Startled, Dr. Zhu recoiled and attempted to leave but was restrained by Qin Jianghao's subordinates, who demanded she stay until they healed her wounds. Understanding the threat I posed with the bounty, Qin Jianghao and his men plotted to move next door to my house, keeping a vigilant watch for the opportunity to strike when I ventured out. Unbeknownst to them, Dr. Zhu eavesdropped on their plans and covertly relayed their strategy to me from the bathroom. I instructed her to remain there and continue observing. Shortly after, they confidently entered the adjacent house, intimidating the couple living there, who dared not resist. Fortunately, they had hidden the remaining food on their persons. In this building with many empty rooms, they deemed any space suitable for habitation. At that moment, Qin Zhanghao's two subordinates viciously struck the couple, rendering them unconscious and sprawled in a pool of blood. Qin Zhanghao, smirking, justified his actions, claiming it was for their own good as they might perish due to the freezing weather if left outside. He also asserted the need to stockpile food. Meanwhile, in Wang Men's house, the three glasses men were writhing in agony on the sofa. Their failed attempts to forcibly acquire medicine from my house had left their wounds festering without proper treatment. The hall was permeated with a putrid stench causing distress to Glasses Man, a recent graduate who was now facing the looming threat of death due to untreated injuries from my rusty arrows. Zhu Peng, among others, pleaded with Wang Men to implore me once more for medicine, fearing their impending demise. However, Wang Men was despondent, realizing persuading me was a challenging task. On another front, since the bounty was placed on Chen Zhenghao, he had grown apprehensive, fearing ambushes from his own subordinates. He resorted to using food and coercion with a pistol to recruit residents into his camp, unaware of the inevitable scarcity that would follow. Observing this from the surveillance, I chuckled at the short-sightedness of his actions. Calling Zhu Qier to inquire about the situation, I heard her nervous voice describing the chaos. Chen Zhenghao's group had consumed all available food and was resorting to house robbery. Several neighbors had already succumbed to their dire circumstances in the past few days. She pleaded, "Can you save me? I haven't eaten anything for 2 days. I can't hold on much longer if this continues." Upon hearing her desperate plea, I paused. Knowing Zhu Qier's significance as the primary surgeon at the nearby Grade 3 hospital in this post-apocalyptic world, I couldn't allow her to perish easily. I assured her, "Don't worry. Once I finish my current task, you'll lack for nothing." Suddenly, there was a knock at my front door. Zhu Peng stood there, frantic, accusing me of cowardice. She claimed Fan Yucking was on the brink of starvation, blaming my hiding. I chuckled at his persistence, deeming him the last bootlicker in this apocalypse. Calmly, I pointed out the tetanus bacteria infesting his body, rendering antibiotics futile. I highlighted her fruitless dedication to Fan Yucking, suggesting she consider her own desires instead of waiting to perish. Upon realizing his impending fate, Zhu Peng struggled to rise, staggering back upstairs. Rushing into Fan Yucking's room, he dropped to his knees before her, proposing marriage in a desperate state. However, Fan Yucking, repulsed, refused outright and ordered him to leave, dismissing his presence as insignificant. Overwhelmed by rejection, Zhu Peng, in despair, grabbed Fan Yucking's neck in hysterical desperation, claiming she loved him and that they should die together, forever. She slapped Zhu Peng in terror. "No, get away from me. You smell so bad. Disgusting." Zhu Peng, gripped by despair, blamed Fan Yucking for his dire situation. As Fan Yucking struggled against his grasp, she retorted, her face turning purple from his tight hold, and berated him for his perceived incompetence. After a night of reflection, Zhu Peng finally agreed to Zhang Yi's proposition, understanding it as a test. Realizing the danger of refusing, she approached Chen Zhenghao and offered help in the kitchen. Chen Zhenghao, interpreting her action as a change of heart, permitted her to assist, assuming she still had some use. With a calm demeanor, Zhu Peng stated her desire to survive, putting Chen Zhenghao at ease. Allowed into the kitchen, she began chopping wood and reluctantly accepted cooking for sustenance, though she felt hesitant about such a meal. When asked to watch the fire by a younger brother, Zhu Peng seized the opportunity. She retrieved a small bottle from her pocket, poured its contents into the pot, and stirred it, while battling her own revulsion. Upon serving a meat soup during mealtime, Chen Zhenghao, surprised by Zhu Peng's participation, expressed his disbelief at Dr. Zhu's unexpected collaboration. To earn their trust, Zhu Peng served herself a bowl of the drugged soup before quietly retreating to her room. Unbeknownst to them, she had tampered with the meat soup, adding a considerable amount of sleeping pills. Aware of the pill's rapid effect, Zhu Peng patiently waited, praying Chen Zhenghao wouldn't notice the tampering. As the sleeping pills swiftly took hold, Chen Zhenghao and his companions dozed off on the sofa, confirming the drug's success. Immediately, Zhu Peng messaged Zhang Yi, notifying him of their unconscious state and inquiring about his next move. Zhang Yi's response was direct: move them to the balcony. Witnessing their vulnerable state, Zhu Peng nervously questioned if he intended to kill them all. In response, with a sly smile, Zhang Yi handed her a rope, instructing her to take action. He demanded the gun from Chen Zhenghao and ordered Zhu Peng to tie them to the railing. Under duress, Zhu Peng hesitated, uncertain about her capacity for such an act. Sensing her hesitation, Zhang Yi aimed the handgun at her, warning that she had only one chance to comply. Realizing her predicament in the harsh weather, Zhu Peng reluctantly followed Zhang Yi's commands. She bound Chen Zhenghao and his group, retrieved the gun from Chen Zhenghao, and reluctantly handed it over to Zhang Yi. Despite her unease about potential betrayal, Zhang Yi's assertion about her reliance on his help left her no choice but to relinquish the gun magazine as instructed. After tossing the gun to Zhang Yi and verifying its authenticity, Zhang Yi withdrew to his room. I then retrieved a water pipe and twisted open the valve, aiming the icy stream directly at Chen Zhenghao's group. Observing this, Zhu Ke was taken aback by the cruelty of turning them into human icicles. As the frigid water hit them, Chen Zhenghao and his accomplices woke abruptly from their sleep, screaming from the intense cold of -100-degree water. Realizing he'd been drugged and bound, Chen Zhenghao cast an accusatory glance my way and called me despicable. Chuckling at his accusation, I retaliated by once again unleashing the chilling torrent of water, freezing them in seconds into ice sculptures. In that very moment, Zhu Ke received my call, acknowledging her success in the trial. As she hung up the phone, relief washed over her, knowing she had passed the test. Under my guidance, Zhu Ke had demonstrated her worth, and true to my word, I decided to let her live in my house. Moments later, she cautiously approached my front door, free from any threatening items, but I remained cautious. Pointing the handgun at the door, I allowed her entry, immediately locking it behind her. As Zhu Ke collapsed onto the floor, she felt an unfamiliar yet comforting warmth spreading through her body. She knew I lived a decent life, but experiencing it firsthand surpassed her expectations. In my shelter, there was an abundance of food and even a warming fireplace, a stark contrast to the harsh -100-degree weather outside. Although Zhu Ke found it to be a warm paradise, just as she was starting to sink into comfort, I abruptly pressed the gun against her back. Dr. Zhu, don't rush into enjoying yourself. You haven't passed my test that easily, do you think so? I reminded her that being aligned with me required honesty between us. Understanding my implications, Zhu Ke promptly removed her coat, revealing herself to me. Without any concealed weapons, I handed her a bath towel. You've been working hard lately, I remarked before she indulged in a hot shower. Her internal complaints about the contrast in living standards were evident. While Zhu Ke was showering, I meticulously arranged the medical kit she had brought into a different area, keeping a cautious eye despite our openness. After 2 hours, she emerged in pajamas, her wet hair cascading down her back, a sight of captivating beauty. Gesturing to the sofa, I invited her to sit and began blow-drying her hair. I've allowed you to stay not because of your appearance, but because you hold value to me. Yet, understand, this is my home, and your residence here is a considerable favor. Any ill intentions will not go unnoticed. The room next door will be yours. You're not allowed to wander without permission. I have surveillance everywhere. If I catch you plotting against me, I won't hesitate to act, I cautioned her. Zhu Ke softly acknowledged the consequences of disobedience, to which I continued, expressing hope that she would keep her word. I assured her fairness, but also emphasized the consequences of betrayal. As I stood behind Zhu Ke, I revealed my biggest secret, aiming to secure her loyalty to me. I continued, explaining that the gamma rays from a supernova explosion caused the snow disaster and potential mutations in humans. To demonstrate, I conjured a loaf of bread seemingly out of thin air, revealing my superpower access to a different space to store various supplies. Observing this, Zhu Ke had an epiphany, realizing the source behind my comfortable lifestyle. Acknowledging her intelligence, I emphasized that aligning with me would grant her access to my supplies, including food, baths, and necessities. However, I stressed the condition that if I were to perish, so would the supplies in this different space, making her survival reliant on mine. Given the limited trust, I assigned her housework duties in exchange for rewards. As Zhu Ke was about to agree, I inquired about what else she could offer me, leaving her blushing in embarrassment. The next day, as Zhu Ke slept peacefully, I contemplated having a woman's company in the apocalypse, acknowledging the mental relief it provided. I signaled her for breakfast, where she eagerly devoured a hamburger, but corrected her manners upon noticing my half-smile. After she finished eating, I handed her a thermal coat capable of withstanding extreme temperatures and gestured for her to accompany me outside. Zhu Ke was confused about our next move. With a cold laugh, I clarified that we were going outside to smash the frozen bodies, considering them disgusting even as icicles. Primarily, I aimed to set an example. As Zhu Ke contemplated holding the baseball bat, she hesitated to smash them despite her indirect involvement in their demise. I gestured for her to take the lead, and without hesitation, she climbed over the balcony and started smashing the frozen figures. As she questioned my recording, I explained that I wanted to display who held power in the building now. Unhesitatingly, Zhu Ke continued swinging the bat, disregarding her previous angelic image, focusing solely on survival. Surprisingly, after I posted the video in the owners group, instead of blaming her, the neighbors applauded and even shed tears of joy. With Chen Zhenghao's tyranny, many owners had suffered, leading to their relief at his downfall. Promptly, I declared my ascendancy in the owners group, warning them to comply or face a fate similar to Chen Zhenghao's. Their sudden flattery flooded the group, but Feng Yuqing unexpectedly called me, seeking food and warmth, but demanding exclusion of Zhu Ke. Amused by her demands, I merely laughed off her plea. So, you're still alive after all, Feng Yuqing realized. Zhang Yi thinks I'm dead, so he's with that woman, Zhu Ke, now, right? I'm coming to live the good life with you. However, her best friend and a man were displeased. Their miserable lives were due to Feng Yuqing, and they wouldn't allow her happiness easily. Soon, the sounds of their altercation could be heard over the phone. Upon hearing the commotion, Zhu Ke rushed over, feeling a sense of urgency, worried I might leave. This scene sparked a mischievous idea in my mind. Feng Yuqing, in the past, you treated me poorly. Now, it's your turn to experience despair, I said as I sent a cozy photo of Zhu Ke to Feng Yuqing and expressed regret for ending things. Feng Yuqing, upon seeing the photo, exploded with emotions. She claimed her true love for me and accused Zhu Ke of being only after food. I chuckled at the irony of her statement, highlighting Feng Yuqing's similar intentions and praising Zhu Ke's superiority. This led Feng Yuqing to tears, feeling betrayed and blaming Zhu Ke. Her friends mocked Feng Yuqing, calling her self-centered, indicating it as karma. Meanwhile, I questioned Zhu Ke about my actions, and she expressed understanding, causing me to feel considerably at ease, acknowledging her rationality and understanding nature. In no time, Zhu Ke had prepared a table full of delicious lunch. Just as I took a bite of an apple, a message popped up in the homeowners group chat. It was Antolin, who was causing trouble again, boasting about her connections in the government and threatening to seize everyone's food. This stunned me. Antolin was one of Chen Zhenghao's first victims, and her survival was nothing short of a miracle. Zhu Ke then mentioned she left some supplies while treating Lin Xiaohu, thinking the snowstorm would soon pass. Shockingly, it lasted for 2.5 months. I was puzzled, considering the time elapsed. It seemed unlikely for Antolin, especially with her young grandson, to have survived even with Zhu Ke's supplies. Zhu Ke shared that Lin Xiaohu had passed away due to lack of medication about 10 days ago. It dawned on me that Antolin might have resorted to something unthinkable. Sensitized by her time under Chen Zhenghao's rule, Zhu Ke understood the implication. Just then, Uncle Yu called. I couldn't refuse Uncle Yu, a martial artist and one of the few good people remaining post-apocalypse. He seemed troubled as he mentioned Xiali Mei's daughter, Tang Bao, had a fever and needed fever-reducing medicine. Uncle Yu, A lifelong single man might have been swayed by Siali Mei's charm and became entangled in her request. Realizing this, I pondered Siali Mei's shrewdness. Among homeowners with supplies, she made the most strategic decision. However, I didn't dwell on it much. Considering it was a matter involving someone else's family, I viewed it as a chance to build rapport with Uncle Yu for potential future use. With a smile, I assured Uncle Yu that I still had a few boxes of fever-reducing medicine and asked him to collect it later. He was thrilled and expressed immense gratitude, promising his help if I needed it in the future. Zhu Ke leaned over and inquired about my relationship with Uncle Yu. I explained that interactions were typically based on mutual benefit. Uncle Yu's goodwill could be valuable later, and I didn't want to witness a retired soldier lose their humanity in these dire times. Shortly after, there was a knock on my door, and it was Uncle Yu asking for little Jean. As I checked through the door's monitor, surprisingly, Siali Mei was also present, seeking help for Tang Bao's high fever. I promptly handed a box of fever-reducing medicine through the small window, urging them to attend to the child immediately. Uncle Yu expressed his gratitude, mentioning how I'd already assisted him twice during the apocalypse. However, Siali Mei made another request, asking if Tang Bao could stay for a while due to the heater. Recognizing her potential ulterior motive, I calmly declined, citing the scarcity of resources and the current situation. Uncle Yu intervened, urging everyone not to trouble me further. However, Siali Mei resorted to emotional manipulation, pleading with me to consider it for Uncle Yu's sake and the young child's well-being. Instantly, my expression darkened, recognizing her manipulative tactics. I understood her history of survival in the previous apocalypse by exploiting sympathies, but I maintained my stance, explaining that in the current dire times, all the tenants were eyeing my place, and I couldn't accommodate everyone. Siali Mei persisted, questioning why Zhu Ke could stay if she couldn't. I responded calmly, stating that Zhu Ke was my girlfriend and her staying was different. Although it was a casual statement, Zhu Ke felt surprised, acknowledging the significance of having a reliable person during such chaotic times. Uncle Yu supported my decision, appealing not to make things harder for me. However, Siali Mei seemed disheartened, claiming she acted for the child's sake and her own future. Uncle Yu left with her, apologizing continually to me as they departed. Alone, I sighed, concerned about potential strain in my relationship with Uncle Yu due to Siali Mei's interference. I valued Uncle Yu for his integrity and skills, and Siali Mei's influence might delay my plans. Meanwhile, upon their return, Uncle Yu questioned Siali Mei's intentions, reminding her of the scarcity of medicine and her apparent greed. Holding the distressed child, she defended her actions, claiming it was for their future and not to be a burden forever. Upon hearing Uncle Yu's gratitude for my warning about the snow disaster, Siali Mei began speculating that if I had advanced knowledge of the disaster, I must have stored a significant amount of supplies. She leaned on Uncle Yu, suggesting that while he saw me as a benefactor, I viewed him as a potential threat, citing the instance where I threw the medicine out to them, fearing their intrusion into my home. She painted a picture of me offering minor favors only to exploit Uncle Yu as a henchman later. Before Siali Mei could finish her argument, Uncle Yu loudly interrupted her, expressing his disapproval. He firmly distinguished between right and wrong, leaving Siali Mei startled, realizing she had angered Uncle Yu and would need to find another opportunity to manipulate the situation. Uncle Yu left, wearing a stern expression, aware of Siali Mei's intentions. As Siali Mei gazed at the sleeping Tang Bao, she resolved to be ruthless to survive in the harsh apocalyptic world. The area had been suffering from the deadly cold for 75 days, making leaving nearly impossible, forcing the remaining tenants to search for food nearby. Suddenly, an unwelcome group arrived, digging in the snow and unearthing a tunnel leading to my apartment complex. Armed with shovels and hammers, they emerged from the tunnel and headed straight to my 24th floor apartment. One of the tenants, upon encountering them, recognized their menacing intent, dropped his bucket, and fled, but his efforts to escape were in vain against their outnumbering force. The group swiftly knocked down anyone in their path with their shovels, intending to devour anything alive they encountered. However, their primary goal was to take over my home, since they had recently discovered that I had stockpiled a substantial amount of food. In these desperate times, where food and warmth were scarce, this information was like a ticking time bomb. Acquiring my supplies meant a chance for them to prolong their survival. Confidently, the group reached my front door, and a young man skilled in demolition approached with a bundle of C4 explosives. After lighting the fuse, he dashed towards the end of the corridor. The ensuing deafening explosion jolted me awake instantly. With the situation at hand, I couldn't hesitate. I swiftly grabbed my handgun and checked the surveillance cameras. Unfamiliar faces prowled at the end of the hallway, discussing their next move. Recognizing their tools, I realized they were a group of construction workers from the neighboring building. Their bold approach toward my home hinted at the leaked information about my stockpile, and their group, consisting of 20 or more individuals, posed a significant threat. Outside my door, confusion brewed among the group. "Old donkey, what kind of lousy bomb did you bring? It can't even blast open a simple door," one of them complained. Old donkey scratched the back of his head, suggesting the explosives might have gotten damp, reducing their effectiveness. Frustration surged within me at their audacity. "If the tiger doesn't show its might, do you think I'm a sitting cat?" I scoffed. Without hesitation, I retrieved white phosphorus I had stored from another dimension. Crafting simple white phosphorus and incendiary grenades, I swiftly tossed them out of the small window beside the door. White phosphorus grenades, upon detonation, create temperatures up to 1000 degrees Celsius, capable of melting objects in close proximity. Soon after, two individuals at the door, unable to evade the intense heat, were instantly engulfed and melted by the scorching flames that quickly spread through the corridor. Old donkey, aflame and trying to communicate with his companions, was abruptly silenced as a bullet pierced through his head. Acting swiftly, I grabbed my handgun and fired multiple shots at those outside, leaving the team leader, second uncle, in a stunned state. They had presumed capturing my home would be easy, yet they were taken aback by its formidable security and deadly weaponry. The scene, with several bodies ablaze on the ground, prompted second uncle to hastily lead the remaining workers in a retreat to their neighboring community, fearing they'd face the same fiery fate if they lingered even for a moment longer. Meanwhile, I pondered deeply, realizing that in this apocalyptic world, there would certainly be more powerful interest groups than these workers, necessitating the acquisition of stronger weapons for defense. Moreover, these assailants had come prepared, and I recognized the need to eliminate them entirely when an opportunity arose. Returning to the room, I reassured the terrified Zhu Ke. "Don't be afraid. I've driven those people away." She looked at me with teary eyes, experiencing her first firefight in this new world. Faced with the prospect of a terrifying fate had the invaders succeeded, she felt a sense of relief upon hearing that I had repelled them. At this moment, I was her sole support. Curious about the recent events, she asked me to explain what had just occurred. I quickly briefed Zhu Ke on the situation. She appeared startled upon hearing the details. "These people are more dangerous than Chen Zhenghao. They're physically stronger from their daily work and have knowledge of demolitions. We need to resolve this issue swiftly, otherwise peace will become a luxury," I emphasized. Glancing at my phone, I decided it was time to enlist some assistance. Simultaneously, the homeowners group chat exploded. I provided a concise update about the situation, prompting a flood of praise from the homeowners. However, I informed them that my weapons were nearly depleted and everyone needed to fend for themselves. Just then, Uncle Yu called, offering details about the workers' leader, Wang Tianfeng, and their gang, Heavenly United Gang. They had harmed numerous homeowners recently. An idea sparked in my mind. "Uncle Yu, could you share more details about them? It'll help us plan against this threat," I requested. He disclosed that the gang had over 20 members, led by the ruthless Wang Tianfeng. His atrocities rivaled those of Chen Zhenghao. Determined to counter this threat, I aimed to collaborate with the homeowners on the 25th floor. Realizing the urgency of the situation, I acknowledged the homeowners' inclination to respond only to force and knew they wouldn't easily unite against external threats. I emphasized the need to wait for the opportune moment, turning to Zhu Ke for support. "Our neighbors may appear respectful, but they are likely to scheme against us. Can I count on you and Uncle Yu to gather information? Understanding the local power dynamics will be crucial for our next moves," I entrusted. 2.5 days passed swiftly. Dressed for work, Zhu Ke presented the latest intelligence on a blackboard. The biggest threat is the Heavenly United Gang, consisting of physically strong laborers. Fortunately, they lack access to firearms or potent weaponry, she reported. Next is the Wolf Gang from Building 21, led by Wang Chong and Xiao Lu, mostly young members in their 20s. Contemplating this information, I realized these groups posed the primary threats. Other homeowners' numbers have dwindled due to internal conflicts, so they shouldn't pose a direct threat, I assessed. Instructing Zhu Ke to keep gathering intel, I stressed confirming their access to firearms or any other armaments. Meanwhile, Huang Tianfeng led the Heavenly United Gang back. Instead of directly targeting my home, they threatened the neighboring residents. They vowed to eliminate them if I didn't emerge. Predictably, this stirred strong reactions from the building's homeowners. Reading their messages, I chuckled at their predictable outcry. "You can't handle them yourselves. Why should I risk my life?" I responded wryly, ruffling their feathers. This provoked further anger among some neighbors, accusing me of lacking conscience and safety while they faced danger. Their accusations sparked my fury. "When you ganged up on me, where was your conscience?" I retorted, seething at their hypocrisy. Their obliviousness to their previous actions only fueled my frustration and desire to retaliate against their unwarranted accusations. "Do you?" As the message sunk in, several neighbors fell silent, recognizing the possibility that I might indeed take drastic actions. Initially, they hoped to survive after Chen Zhenghao's demise. However, facing the far more ruthless Heavenly United Gang, their survival seemed uncertain amidst this impending snowstorm. Seeing my distressed neighbors, I dialed Uncle Yu with a smirk. "Uncle Yu, it's your moment," I said. After a long pause, Uncle Yu suddenly chimed in the group chat, offering reassurance. "Don't fear, everyone. The Heavenly United Gang is at most 20 people. Together, we can defend ourselves." His words sparked hope among the homeowners, rallying their support. However, Uncle Yu disclosed his days of fasting and pinned the group's potential victory on me due to my house's resources and weapons. It amazed me to see Uncle Yu, seemingly straightforward, so adept at steering people's opinions. In a private message, Uncle Yu sought my guidance on the next steps, seizing the opportune moment. Instructing him to keep backing me, I aim to leverage this chance to establish authority and ensure the building's safety. Thus, I made a firm declaration in the homeowners chat, stating my willingness to collaborate only due to Uncle Yu's support. I proposed cooperation with a condition. They must follow my lead without underhanded dealings. Many promptly agreed, albeit cautiously, promising compliance as long as I didn't lead them to doom. Seeing their hesitance, I clarified, "I won't endanger you, but I need your support against the Heavenly United Gang. Can you do that?" The chat fell into silence, revealing their uncertainty and apprehension about the daunting task ahead. What separates this from a death sentence? As no one dared to reply, I chuckled. "So, you'd prefer I risk my life alone out there?" Shoker, standing by my side, shared my disbelief at the cowardice of these neighbors. Continuing in the group chat, I remarked, "If that's the case, there's no need for further deliberation. You can wait for the Heavenly United Gang to pick you off one by one. My steel front door keeps me secure." Seeing this, Uncle Yu staunchly supported me in the chat. "If we persist like this, we're all done for. Instead of awaiting our doom, why not band together for a chance at survival?" His words made the homeowners realize the gravity of the situation. "Uncle Yu's right. We should give it our all," they agreed unanimously. Observing their compliance, I issued a stern directive. Henceforth, everyone must heed my instructions. Those trying to freeload while doing nothing will face the consequences. This declaration prompted others in the chat to call out those avoiding responsibility, realizing the severity of our life and death situation. Understanding the importance of maintaining a balance between kindness and authority in leadership, I assured them of my commitment. "Since you've chosen to follow me, I won't disappoint you as long as you obey. I'll venture out to secure supplies." To equip the building against potential threats, basic combat readiness was necessary. Fortunately, I had prepared snowmobiles for mobility in this snowy chaos. However, the homeowners expressed confusion upon hearing this plan. "Won't you freeze out there in this extreme cold?" Assuring them of my preparedness, I replied, "I have a plan. As a leader, I must take action for everyone." With my knowledge of nearby malls and supermarkets from my past role as a warehouse manager, and with my dwindling supplies, seeking more is imperative for our survival. Upon hearing the homeowners' words of admiration, claiming they made the right choice in following me, I understood their true nature. In this unpredictable apocalyptic world, human behavior is the most uncertain. Although my neighbors began treating me like a deity, pledging unwavering obedience to my commands, their flattery didn't sway me. Their lives or deaths, aside from battling the Heavenly United Gang, were of little consequence to me. The memory of my previous life's agonies kept haunting me, making me detached from their praise. Despite their adoration, the prolonged snowstorm had paralyzed the outside world, concealing lurking dangers. Donning my level 3 armor, I reassured Joe Kyer, expressing my eagerness to venture outside. Assuring her of ample supplies at home, I declined her offer to accompany me, playfully advising her to wait for my return. Though touched, within seconds, I discreetly moved all remaining food and coal to a secure hiding place before descending to the 4th floor. The snow had risen alarmingly, nearly reaching the 3rd and 4th floors. Stepping outside, I sank knee-deep into the engulfing snow. Luckily, pre-apocalypse preparations had allowed me to store snowmobiles, indispensable for navigating through meters-high snowdrifts. Despite the serene neighborhood drowned in the snowstorm's clamor, I noticed no prying eyes. I retrieved a snowmobile from my secret stash, oblivious to the shadowy figure observing from a building above. Revving my cherished bike, I rode out, yearning for freedom after being confined at home for so long. The sense of cabin fever had taken hold, and finally, an opportunity arose to breathe some fresh air. After indulging in the exhilarating speed of the snowmobile, I headed towards the deserted Heavenly Sea City Police Station, with a clear goal in mind: to secure more potent weaponry. In this post-apocalyptic reality, the glaring absence of sufficient firepower was the root of all fears. The station loomed in darkness, appearing abandoned for an extended period. Upon stepping inside, I stumbled upon a group of frozen cops huddled together in a corner, their meager attire hinting at a harrowing night shift when the extreme cold struck. Their vulnerability made me uneasy. They were ill-prepared for such weather conditions. Paying my respects to these once vigilant city protectors, I covered them with a white cloth, a small gesture of tribute. Amidst this solemn scene, I noticed a collection of keys concealed behind some fabric. Their discovery lit up my face, realizing that these keys would grant me access to all rooms in the building, including the armory. Honoring the fallen officers one last time, I embarked on a quest to locate the armory. Soon enough, I stumbled upon a room labeled Armory. As the door swung open, an array of weapons greeted my eyes, among them a formidable sniper rifle. The time spent fortifying my safe haven had refined my shooting skills to impeccable precision. Armed with these weapons, I felt impervious to fear. I swiftly gathered all the armory's weapons into my alternate space, preparing for potential encounters with additional Heavenly United gangs. Next on my agenda was securing supplies for the expendable neighbors. Although my safe house could endure various forms of attack, the collapse of the building's load-bearing walls would render it vulnerable. Therefore, using these neighbors as a protective buffer seemed the most strategic approach. Recognizing that the nearby shopping centers near the residential area were likely picked clean due to the prolonged snow disaster, I set out for a vast suburban mall, now buried under layers of snow, relying on memory to guide me. I shoveled away the snow, cleared the ground with my hands, then broke the skylight and descended down using a rope. The sight of the opulent goods within the mall stirred a sense of nostalgia in me. Before the apocalypse, affording even a single item from here would cost 2 months' worth of wages, a luxury now rendered into worthless remnants. Amidst the debris, I stowed away useful supplies in my alternate space, noting their importance. Navigating through the mall, I headed to the underground supermarket. The extreme cold had caused the fruits to freeze and spoil, while some meat had taken on a zombie-like frozen state. Selecting the edible items, despite their less than ideal condition, I packed them into my bags, acknowledging their sufficiency for dealing with the neighbors. Returning to the neighborhood with 2 bulging bags of supplies, my actions were observed by a few members of the Heavenly United gang from the adjacent building. Spotting my snowmobile, Wang Tanfeng's eyes gleamed with interest. Possessing such a vehicle would enable him to procure supplies outdoors. The sound of the snowmobile's engine attracted both the Heavenly United gang members and curious neighbors, their eyes filled with greed and longing. Uncle Yu, visibly surprised, approached me carrying the 2 substantial bags of supplies, remarking on my impressive haul. I lamented about the emptied local supermarkets due to the ongoing snowstorm, which limited the amount I could bring back, despite the food being compromised by the cold. Their eyes brimmed with anticipation and desire as I presented the supplies, warning them that my efforts to retrieve these goods should be appreciated. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Uncle Yu rallied the crowd, acknowledging the hope my actions had brought for survival. The chant of my name echoed among them, prompting me to take a stand. I instructed Shu Kier to display all the supplies I had collected, delivering a stern message to everyone, emphasizing the dangerous nature of the current circumstances, while assuring them of my commitment to their well-being. And as Zhang Yi, I won't tolerate idleness. Those who consume these supplies must stand against the Heavenly United Gang. Suddenly, members of the Heavenly United Gang arrived at our building, armed and demanding our food. I recognized this as an opportunity to test our neighbors. Pointing at the gang members, I declared coldly that anyone who could take down one of them would be rewarded with food sufficient for 5 people. The neighbors hesitated initially, but with only 10 gang members outside against their larger group, they gathered courage. Armed with pots and pans, they charged toward the gang. The Heavenly United Gang, shocked by this unexpected bravery, found themselves in a fierce confrontation, both sides fighting fiercely for the scarce food. In the heat of the moment, injuries accumulated, yet they fought on, spurred by their desperation. This display of resolve was precisely what I wanted to witness. While no saint, I recognized their willingness to fight for survival deserved food. Uncle Yu joined the fray, shifting the battle decisively in our favor as the gang couldn't match our combined strength. The fleeing gang members didn't look back, and the neighbors, now victors, cheered. It was their first hard-won battle for survival. However, amidst the celebration, Shu Kier noticed the severity of injuries suffered by many neighbors. Lacking professional medical equipment and medication, their survival prospects were grim. I quickly gathered everyone in the lobby to commend their efforts. As witnessed here, unity holds immense power, showcasing that even in an apocalypse, collective effort can overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. Addressing the 2 individuals who excelled in the battle, I praised their performance and handed them portions of food. Overwhelmed by gratitude, they were moved to tears, realizing it was their first full meal in this chaotic world. The neighbors, feeling regretful for not contributing enough earlier, exemplified the attitude I sought: a readiness to confront external threats without hesitation. I then distributed food to the remaining individuals, some receiving less and feeling the weight of their earlier inaction. When it was Su Hao's turn, a second-generation wealthy individual, I offered him a small piece of candy, while others received at least a biscuit. His discontent erupted into complaints, demanding more food. Responding coldly, I pointed out his lack of direct involvement in the front lines, emphasizing the fairness of his allocation, given his minimal contribution. Su Hao attempted to justify his absence during the fight, but I emphasized results over excuses, stating that his failure to find a way in was his responsibility. His protestations of unfairness sparked my fury, and I gestured for neighbors to restrain him. Highlighting the contrast, a woman in her 40s managed to participate despite the chaos, while Su Hao, a man in his 30s, made excuses. Pointing a gun at him, I rebuked his audacity to demand fairness after his lack of active participation. Gathering everyone's attention, I confronted the undisciplined and disobedient Su Hao. The 2 neighbors holding him gave him a stern reprimand, followed by my declaration that anyone who thought I was overbearing could find their own food, asserting that I, Chang Yi, wouldn't interfere. Receiving no objections, I expressed satisfaction and urged everyone to comply with the arrangements. Despite this, Su Hao, known for his arrogance, remained defiant. In response, I stepped on his hand, emphasizing the harsh reality of our post-apocalyptic existence and stating that I wouldn't support someone like him, only good for eating. As I directed Shocker to collect the remaining food, a voice interrupted from the crowd. Fan Yuqing, seeking favoritism, pushed through, but I dismissed her, clarifying that there was never any food allocated for her in the first place. Her tears flowed, insisting that I favored her most, to which I rebuffed, mentioning my current girlfriend and requesting her to stop bothering me. As Shocker showed affection towards me, Fan Yuching, distraught, cried harder, expressing disbelief at my change. I mocked her previous reliance on her looks, pointing out the worth of her appearance in this new world. Meanwhile, Su Hao, lying on the ground, interjected. This conniving woman tried to ensnare me before the apocalypse. Luckily, being a smart, affluent second-generation individual, I saw through her tactics. As I mentioned this, the surrounding neighbors began to murmur, surprised by the revelation that this seemingly innocent woman was more of a schemer than they thought. Fan Yuching attempted to hush everyone, but was ignored. Left with no recourse, she yelled and hastily fled. I acknowledged Su Hao's sensible behavior by giving him another candy. Following this, I commenced organizing the defense of the building, excluding the children who lacked fighting capabilities. With a total of 47 people in Building 25, I divided the residents, except for myself, Shou Kai'er, and Uncle Yu's couple, into 6 groups. Each group consisting of 7 to 8 individuals would work 25-hour shifts to guard against potential attacks from other buildings. I stressed the importance of alerting everyone by hitting the stair railing or metal objects in case of any emergencies. The same rewards for eliminating outsiders remained in place. Food sufficient for 5 people for every enemy defeated. Those who slackened during their shifts would receive only leftover food. Acknowledging Uncle Yu's military expertise, I assigned him the responsibility to oversee these arrangements. 2 days passed without any moves from the Heavenly United Gang, which concerned Shou Kai'er. Peaceful periods often heralded trouble. Meanwhile, I engaged myself in learning various firearm techniques on my tablet. The city remained trapped under heavy snow, enveloping the lower buildings. Even if the snow stopped, it would take at least 2.5 months for the snow to melt, causing substantial disruptions. In this post-apocalyptic world, human nature posed a more menacing threat than natural disasters. Leveraging the firearms procured from the armory in my pocket dimension, I ensured I was well equipped with firepower, unafraid of any number of adversaries. The weaponry included an 8-power scope, aiding in monitoring the community's situation. As I readied myself to practice my rusty shooting skills with the sniper rifle on the balcony, my 8-power scope caught the sight of 2 figures. A cold smile crossed my lips as I noticed the Heavenly United Gang's members making their way towards the community garage. It dawned on me that they were likely targeting my snowmobile. However, their efforts were bound to be in vain. I had deceptively made it seem like I left the snowmobile in the garage during the day when, in reality, I had already concealed it within the pocket dimension. Uncle Yu called to inform me that the defense personnel had been arranged appropriately and urged me not to take Xiaoli Mi's words from earlier to heart, stating that she tends to be talkative. I chuckled at the notion of holding a grudge against a woman for such matters, but I couldn't resist teasing Uncle Yu about his relationship with Xiaoli Mi. I questioned if he truly wanted to raise a child for someone else and suggested he should consider ensuring Xiaoli Mi bears his child as well, given his efforts. Uncle Yu laughed heartily, acknowledging the complications of relationships during these challenging times. He was aware of the significance men often placed on their bloodline, but dismissed the matter for the moment, considering the scarcity of resources and time amid the apocalypse. He emphasized that with the world's end upon us, he didn't have the luxury to dwell on others' family affairs while handling his own concerns. Meanwhile, a group from the Heavenly United Gang stealthily infiltrated the first-floor lobby under the cover of darkness, led by Huang Tianfeng's nephew, Huang Wei, accompanied by 8 others. As they reached the stairwell, a brick came hurtling toward Huang Wei, who narrowly dodged it. Following this, a series of knocking sounds echoed through the stairwell. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Those Heavenly United Gang bastards are back. Hearing this, Huang Wei was instantly enraged. Brothers, charge with me. Let's finish off these cowards. With those words, he led the charge towards the stairwell. Little did he know that under my reward policy, the neighbors on duty were as motivated as if they'd been injected with adrenaline. In no time, they had taken down several members of the Heavenly United Gang. Observing the fierce determination of the neighbors, Huang Wei immediately ordered the remaining members to retreat, seeing no point in further confrontation. The neighbors, cautious of the severe snowstorm outside and potential ambushes, decided against pursuing them. The knocking sounds in the stairwell roused me from my sleep. Their timing was impeccable. Suddenly, a thought struck me. It was the perfect opportunity to practice my shooting skills. The old saying goes, outside 100 steps, the gun is fast. Within 100 steps, the gun is both accurate and fast. With that in mind, I swiftly retrieved my beloved sniper rifle from my pocket dimension. Today, none of them would get away. I swiftly set up the cannon, aiming directly at one of the fleeing gang members. Thanks to the 8x scope, I could discern even the hairs in the man's nostrils. As I pulled the trigger, a deafening gunshot shattered the silence of the night, hitting the escaping thug precisely. Feeling satisfied, I couldn't help but wonder, am I a natural-born marksman? The remaining members of the Heavenly United gang were horrified as they witnessed their comrade fall in a pool of blood. Shocked by the shooting, they wasted no time and fled towards their own compound. Observing the scene, I couldn't suppress a smile. I readied the sniper rifle once more. Suddenly, a peculiar sensation overcame me. It felt as if the enemy in the scope was moving at a speed 1,000 times slower. As I pulled the trigger again, the fleeing gang member received a headshot and went down. Realizing this, it dawned on me that my awakened abilities might not be limited to the pocket dimension. Perhaps I possess a marksman's talent. To verify this, I fired 5 consecutive shots. Each goon, without exception, received a headshot and was killed. A smile crept to my face. With this newfound marksmanship, all I needed in the future was to find a suitable sniping point to deal with these intruders. My extraordinary shooting skills startled everyone in the building, leading the neighbors to abandon any trivial ideas they might have held about me. Their respect and admiration for me skyrocketed at that moment. The next morning, Shocker made me a bowl of noodles. With a nervous expression, she asked, "Was it you who fired the gun last night?" Hearing her question, I smiled. That reckless Heavenly United gang tried another sneak attack, so I had to take action. Hearing this, Shocker looked at me with eyes full of admiration. "Shani, you're amazing." Initially seeking protection under me for survival, now she seemed captivated by my charm. Internally thrilled, I maintained a composed demeanor. How had I gone from being an ordinary person in my past life to becoming a godlike figure in the eyes of beautiful women? It was a complete reversal. Meanwhile, members of the Heavenly United gang stared at the bodies in the snow, falling into silence. Their repeated failed attempts to raid had yielded nothing but losses, including Huang Tianfeng's nephew. Realizing I possessed such a powerful weapon, they were at a loss regarding how to deal with me. Furthermore, their current situation indicated they would soon starve without acquiring food. Hardening his heart, Huang Tianfeng ordered his men to retrieve the bodies of Huang Wei and the others, a means to prolong their survival. On my side, I continued patrolling the building and checking on the neighbors on duty as usual. After the events of the previous night, everyone's attitude toward me had shifted into genuine awe, understanding that under my leadership, the community could potentially survive longer in this post-apocalyptic world. Riding my beloved snowmobile, I departed from the community once more, courtesy of Uncle Yu, who shared the location of a nearby army camp. After entrusting the community's well-being to the others, I set out for the army camp. This activity caught the attention of Wolfgang from Building 21, who was perplexed about where I had concealed the snowmobile. Despite their extensive search of the underground garage earlier, they had found nothing. The thought of having access to a snowmobile intrigued them, considering the possibility of conducting widespread scavenging in various malls and extending their reach with more supplies and recruitment. In the midst of this conversation, Xiao Lu nodded, acknowledging the emergence of heroes in troubled times and the opportune moment for them to rise. Wang Chuan's determination shone through as he emphasized the necessity of obtaining that snowmobile. Meanwhile, I navigated the snow-covered terrain on my snowmobile, planning to scavenge materials around the city before reaching the army camp. The heavy snowfall over the past 3 months had buried numerous small shops, forcing me to search for supplies in a few large, independent supermarkets left in the city. Recollecting the Walmart South warehouse from my previous employment, I recalled its emptiness post-apocalypse, but remembered nearby smaller warehouses, likely holding useful resources. Arriving at the Walmart South warehouse, I found it to be partially emptied before the snow disaster. Despite this, I descended through the skylight to investigate if any remnants were left. Inside, I came across several heavy-duty trucks and a collection of luxury sports cars, yet the majority of the supplies had already been relocated. Although seemingly useless at the moment, I considered the luxury sports cars and heavy-duty trucks as potential assets for future displays. Subsequently, I sought out useful supplies from a few other warehouses before driving towards the gas station. Recognizing the snowmobile's crucial role as my primary mode of transport, I grew concerned about potential fuel scarcity in the future. Upon reaching the gas station, I found it heavily obscured by snow, leaving only a signpost visible, a problematic situation that called for an excavator. Then, it struck me I had stored a few excavators in my alternate space. Swiftly retrieving one, I found the snow hadn't solidified enough, making excavation feasible. Thanks to prior forklift driving experience, operating the excavator posed no challenge. For 2 hours, I diligently dug, and a distinct metallic clang signified the emergence of the gas station's large roof platform. Venturing inside, I located the fuel storage, typically situated underground. Prying open the basement door with a crowbar, I took precautions to discharge static electricity before entering. Within the storage area, I found several substantial fuel tanks, a valuable resource for future mobility. Sealing the tanks' openings with plastic wrap to prevent gasoline leakage, I prepared to store the entire fuel reserve in my alternate space. However, a crucial realization struck me. While everyone else was practically immobilized under meters of snow, I held the advantage. Not only could I traverse the snowy terrain with ease, but I also had excavators at my disposal. With the fuel now secured in my alternate space, I recognized that buried resources beneath the snow were effectively within my reach. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening, prompting me to rest there for the night before visiting the army camp Uncle Yu had mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, in the residential area, a neighbor's child was struck by a high fever, reaching 40 degrees Celsius. Shukir looked helpless as her medicine box had run out of emergency medications. Just then, Uncle Yu arrived with a box of children's fever medicine, a remnant from Johnny. With the aid of Uncle Yu's fever medicine, the child's high fever finally subsided. However, Shukir cautioned the mother to closely monitor her baby's condition due to infants being highly susceptible to illness in extreme cold weather. After giving her advice, Shukir and Uncle Yu began their regular patrol. Suddenly, a woman's scream pierced the air as Auntie Line from the neighborhood committee lunged at the child in the mother's arms with a small knife, crying out about her deceased grandson. The mother, acting on instinct, shielded her child from the attack. Reacting swiftly, Shukir caught the baby as the mother collapsed in a pool of blood, sacrificing herself to protect her child. In a frenzy, Auntie Line accused everyone around, blaming them for her grandson's death. Recognizing Auntie Line's disturbed state, Shukir understood that reasoning with her wouldn't work. She attempted to flee towards the stairwell while holding the child, but Auntie Line grabbed her ankle, ready to strike. In a desperate moment, Uncle Yu intervened just in time, kicking Auntie Line to the ground, but getting cut on his left hand in the process. He felt relieved to see Shukir unharmed, realizing that if anything had happened to her, he wouldn't be able to explain things to me. At that moment, Auntie Line had completely lost her sanity, biting anyone she could reach and blaming individuals for various reasons. As she accused Gijuang and others, Uncle Yu became furious, confronting her for her irrational behavior. Jocker stepped in, informing Auntie Line that Zhang Yi had sent medicine, but unfortunately, it arrived too late. Auntie Line's frenzy escalated upon hearing this. Two neighbors mocked her for her actions, showcasing the consequences of her extreme love for her grandson. In an attempt to end the madness, one of the neighbors lit a fire, bringing warmth to Auntie Line before her demise. Meanwhile, on the other side, as I stepped out of the tent, it was time to make my way to the army camp, following Uncle Yu's guidance. Using an excavator from my pocket dimension and my previous experience from digging out the gas station, I successfully uncovered the camp's dormitory entrance. However, the camp was strangely deserted. Given the sudden snow disaster and the remote location, it seemed unlikely that the military had evacuated in time. A dreadful thought crossed my mind at that moment. Could it be that the military possessed prior knowledge of the impending snow disaster and consequently evacuated their troops and resources beforehand? The chilling thought sent a shiver down my spine. If that was indeed the case, whoever controlled these substantial supplies and weapons post-disaster could potentially establish a new order in this apocalyptic world. It was evident that this setting might soon become a battleground where different armed factions would vie for dominance. Realizing this, I felt the urgent need to arm myself in preparation for this imminent era. With this determination, I continued operating the excavator, intensively digging amidst the thunderous noise. The excavator created a sizable hole in the wall of the weapons arsenal, revealing a staggering array of military supplies. Among the numerous firearms, bullets, and hand grenades, I found an unexpectedly massive haul. However, tanks and heavy armored vehicles were notably absent. Was it possible that the military had only taken a portion of the weapons on a mission? I didn't dwell on it for long. The gathered arsenal was more than sufficient for my current needs. If necessary, I could always scavenge more firepower from another military camp. After storing all these supplies in my pocket dimension, riding my snowmobile back home, I was met with accusatory remarks from the neighbors, assuming I returned empty-handed after 2 days solely for my benefit. Amused by their accusations, I reminded them of my previous efforts to aid them in their survival. Expressing my disappointment, I declared that they were on their own from now on, to fend for themselves. A neighbor attempted to defuse the situation, acknowledging the challenges of finding food in the snow. However, inside Building 25, resentment simmered among the residents upon learning that I hadn't brought back any food. In their perspective, their efforts defending the building were sufficient, and they didn't anticipate any form of attitude from me. At that moment, a person donning a small red hat stepped forward, feigning sincerity, suggesting that I should take companions along for the food hunt next time, citing strength in numbers. Unbeknownst to me, he concealed a small knife behind his back. Simultaneously, 2 other neighbors stepped in to support him, offering their readiness to face any challenge for my sake. Internally, I scoffed at their hidden agendas. I knew they weren't sincere. Reacting swiftly, I reached into my pocket, retrieved a gun, and without hesitation, shot the person in the red hat in the head, exposing their deceit. I made it clear that I didn't trust a word they said, not even their punctuated pleas. I reminded them that without my help, they would have fallen prey to Chen Zhenghao's gang long ago. As a few neighbors hurriedly attempted to explain themselves, I fired several more shots, instantly taking down the 2 leading the conversation. Witnessing this, the rest scattered in fear, fleeing in different directions. The sound of gunfire attracted Uncle Yu and a couple of others. No care, concerned for my safety, rushed over, inquiring about my well-being. I assured her that those individuals were not capable of harming me. Upon understanding the situation, Uncle Yu shared my fury, berating the individuals who forgot who they should rely on after a few meals. With a calm demeanor, I asserted that I couldn't be bothered to chase after those who fled. Siali me, feeling a shiver, realized I did this as a warning to others. I started formulating a plan for the future, realizing that relying solely on expendables wouldn't keep the building secure forever. When I returned to the safe house, I asked Shauker if anything had happened during my 2-day absence. Shauker informed me that Auntie Land had become unhinged due to her grandson's death and had killed a mother who lived upstairs. Fortunately, 2 neighbors intervened and took care of her. Additionally, someone named Ling Yu from Building 9 wanted to discuss something with me, but Shauker emphasized that I should handle the specifics personally. Initially unimpressed by this woman's offer of cooperation, considering my ample supplies and weapons, I inquired about her identity through Shauker. It turned out that she used to own a cosmetics company in Heavenly Sea City before the apocalypse and now wields strong influence over Building 9. Surprised by her abilities as a woman managing an entire building effectively, my curiosity was piqued. Shauker noticed my interest and suggested finding out what this woman wanted from us, at least out of curiosity, about how she managed such control over an entire building. Just then, I received friend requests on my phone from Chen Lingyu and Li Jin, an ex-financial director at my former company, leaving me wondering what their intentions were. After accepting Chen Lingyu's request, she immediately messaged me asking if we could chat privately. Not one for beating around the bush myself either, I urged her to get straight to the point instead of engaging in unnecessary small talk or voice chats, which might be inconvenient for both parties involved. However determined she initially seemed, using pre-apocalypse persuasion techniques on me failed, since typing via text message remained our only option due to living within close proximity in our residential complex, where we're aware of each other's capabilities. In writing Mr. Zhang Yi, my name, Chen Lingyu acknowledged having heard rumors about reputation, including my possession of a snowmobile and ability to venture out in search of supplies. Therefore, I hope to work together with you in gathering resources. It made me smile because if we cooperate, I wonder what benefits you can bring me. Chen Lingyu mentioned that the building she oversees is quite harmonious and has a large number of survivors. They could provide manpower for expanding territories. However, there's a condition: I would need to provide food for these workers before they can assist. Chen Lingyu kept on talking and mentioned that as someone like Mr. Zhang Yi, who is currently targeted by everyone, it's no surprise that thousands of people in the community are considering their options regarding Building 25 and its mass attack potential. But if I were to supply them with food, at least the threat from Building 9 would be eliminated for me. This amused me as I read the message. So are you trying to threaten me? If I don't agree, are you planning an attack? In a smug manner, Chen Lingyu responded, saying that cooperating with them would lead to a win-win situation for both parties involved. I chuckled at her response. It's not often one sees such bold begging tactics. Letting her know that I'll take some time to think about it, as any smart person would, my gaze shifted towards the window, deep in thought. Will everyone turn against me within our community? While facing them individually doesn't frighten me much, however, if they unite forces like suggested by Chen Lingyu, well then they might just tear down this entire building. Although outside there isn't enough electricity or heavy machinery capable of destroying our structure completely, things wouldn't go well if experts armed with explosives got involved. Just when pondering over what course of action should be taken next, my phone buzzed, indicating a new message had arrived. It was from my former colleague Li Jin, who went on about sincerely hoping for cooperation between us in order to build a harmonious post-apocalyptic utopia. He mentioned how well everyone in Building 18 gets along under his management, but they are currently facing a shortage of food resources and hope to work together with me. In addition, Li Jin offered assistance in coordinating relationships with other buildings. I smiled after reading the message. Even the intellectuals know how to sugarcoat things nicely. Not only are they skilled at managing, but they also understand the importance of maximizing benefits. Later, I talked to Zhu Care about the situation in Building 18. She mentioned that Li Jin was highly capable and had managed to unite all the residents after the apocalypse. Not only that, but his fair distribution of resources had greatly contributed to their survival. It made me chuckle because it's all just a facade. Their unity is solely based on having enough food. Once that runs out, who knows what chaos will unfold. As I scrolled through my phone, I noticed several friend requests from other building owners seeking cooperation as well. It left me with two options: either go into a full-blown war or find a way to cooperate with them somehow. Curiosity got the best of me, and so I asked Zhu Care if there was any chance we could have both peace within our community while exploring new opportunities elsewhere. Although she pointed out its unrealistic nature, suggesting we become hermits in an empty place devoid of people wasn't exactly helpful either. The next morning came along, and after contemplating for hours on end, I decided on my course of action. With determination in mind, I tagged everyone in the community group chat and addressed them about our crisis at Building 25. Some nearby buildings were envious because they couldn't scavenge for food like us. Now they threatened to attack unless we handed over our supplies and snowmobiles. As soon as this message went live, chaos erupted within the chat room. What do these idiots think they're doing? Someone exclaimed angrily. To boost everyone's morale further during such trying times ahead, I continued speaking up in the group chat, stating how giving up even one snowmobile would leave everyone vulnerable without means of transportation or defense against starvation threats from outsiders. Seeing their reactions gave me some relief, although deep down inside there remained doubts whether these people might turn against me eventually. Suddenly though, everything changed when a notification popped up on my phone revealing Chen Ling had added me to a discussion group for community building owners. It seemed they were preparing to confront me head-on. Wang Chong from Building 21 wasted no time and sarcastically commented, "Oh Zhang Yi, I've heard you're living the high life these days, with plenty of food on your plate." I noticed that my neighbors from Building 26 were acting in a comfortable yet neglectful manner, failing to consider my well-being. Wang Tianfeng even directly threatened me, leaving me with a sense of unease. However, Li Jian from Building 18 attempted to mediate the situation, presenting 3 conditions for negotiation. Firstly, I must provide essential supplies to ensure the survival of the community. Secondly, my snowmobile must be made communal, allowing everyone to take turns using it. Lastly, I must share all known resource locations with the community. If I refuse, I risk becoming the enemy of the entire community. I found their demands amusing, as they pretended to negotiate while secretly planning to take advantage of me. I realized that dealing with a few building owners would be more manageable than thousands of people. So, I pretended to discuss negotiation locations with them and began to arm myself, taking advantage of their underestimation of my abilities. With thousands of residents, their lack of a unified leader made them easily defeatable. Meanwhile, Uncle E was distributing food to neighbors in the hallway, replenishing their strength before the negotiations. The sight of neighbors who hadn't eaten a full meal in days moved me, and I knew the situation was dire. My appearance caused a sensation among everyone, and I smiled, knowing that successful negotiations would bring an end to the food problem and bloodshed. Everyone needed to be at their best today, defending their own posts and working together to achieve a positive outcome. We were close to winning. Everyone was in tears when they heard that. They swore that they would follow me loyally even in the next life. I took them to the place where we agreed to negotiate. I hid among the crowd and waited for a chance to attack. Soon, groups from different buildings arrived at the community square. They saw that the other side had brought a lot of people. I was shocked. Why do they need so many people for a negotiation? They obviously want to intimidate me. I quickly called Uncle E and told him to go with a team first. I stayed back to support them with fire. I set up a sniper rifle and became a sniper. By then, people from all sides had surrounded Uncle E and his team. Uncle E was sweating. "These people are not here to negotiate. They want to kill us." A scared neighbor asked him, "Uncle E, they are too many. We can't handle them even if we fight 10 each." Uncle E told him not to worry. "They only want to pressure Zhang Yi to negotiate. They don't want anything from us." The building owners were at the front of the crowd, looking smug. They thought they had the negotiation in their hands. Chen Linyu was also happy. "Zhang Yi may be scary by himself, but we have thousands of people. What can he do?" On their way to the negotiation, the building owners had decided not to let me isolate any of them. Wang Chong laughed. "Look, we can make Zhang Yi afraid with our numbers. He must have run back to change his diapers." Chen Linyu, getting impatient, said, "Stop talking. Let's bring Zhang Yi here to negotiate. It's over once he agrees to the conditions we set." Wang Tianfeng stepped forward and yelled, "Where is Zhang Yi? Bring him here to negotiate now. He will be sorry if he makes us wait more." Uncle E looked at them and said, "Our boss is upstairs waiting for you. Weren't you all supposed to come for the negotiation?" Li Jian fixed his glasses. "We have talked about it. The 5 of us building owners will speak for everyone." Uncle E didn't say anything else. "All right. Only the 5 of you building owners are permitted to enter, and you must consent to a search as well." Chen Lin and Wang Chong found this amusing and burst into laughter. "Who does Zhang Yi think he is? Setting conditions at this moment? Do you believe we can wipe all of you out right now?" Witnessing their arrogant behavior, how could I tolerate it? I immediately contacted Uncle E and instructed him to have everyone retreat 20 meters, even though he was unaware of my plans. Nonetheless, Uncle E complied and had everyone move back. Seeing this, Wang Chong made a threat. "Don't try any tricks on us. With so few of you, one spit from us could drown all of your group." Soon enough, both parties were separated by more than 20 meters. However, Wang Chong's group didn't seem concerned in the slightest. They had overwhelming numbers and never considered the possibility of something unexpected occurring. But then came the unexpected second. I blew a whistle from behind Uncle E as an initial demonstration for them. Subsequently, I threw a hand grenade toward where Wang Chong's group stood before anyone had time to react with curses or cries for help. The grenade landed perfectly in the center of their crowd. Within moments after detonation erupted with an ear-splitting explosion, rendering only a large hole approximately 10 meters wide, along with several lifeless bodies remaining visible once smoke cleared. Uncle E proceeded forward holding his phone, which played my voice message aloud while walking towards them. Do not assume superiority just because your numbers exceed ours. I possess another 200 boxes filled with grenades identical to what was used here. After witnessing me throw that grenade earlier on without delay or hesitation caused shockwaves throughout, no one present could fathom where those grenades originated, nor conceive any knowledge regarding other heavy weaponry potentially at my disposal. Wang Chong glared intently, speaking into the phone to Zhang Yi, saying, "Zhang Yi, our purpose for coming here was to negotiate. Your current actions are entirely unacceptable." In response, Zhang Yi scoffed and retorted with a question of his own. "Do you truly believe it necessary to bring over 1,000 individuals just for negotiations? Is this how you express sincerity?" He then glanced at his watch, revealing that there were less than 5 minutes remaining until the conclusion of our negotiation timeframe. With a sense of urgency, Zhang Yi declared, "You must come here within that time frame, or we will cease communication and resort to violence." The threat was enough to send shivers down everyone's spines, as they knew they couldn't possibly win in a physical confrontation. They scurried up to the 13th floor, where Zhang Yi was waiting, his patience wearing thin. He had only 20 boxes of grenades left, and he intended to save them for a later time. As some of the building owners arrived, breathless and anxious, Zhang Yi noticed that there were only 5 of them. He had hoped to gather all of the building owners together, register them for Casketania as a group, but it seemed he would have to resort to Plan B. Li Jian, one of the building owners, brought up the proposal they had discussed previously, asking Zhang Yi to provide materials for their workers in exchange for their labor. Zhang Yi, however, was not interested in negotiating further. With a sudden movement, he pulled out a handgun and placed it on the table, causing the 5 building owners to pale in fear. Wang Chong spoke up, his voice trembling, "Zhang Yi, what are you doing? If you kill us, the entire community will turn against you." Zhang Yi smiled lightly, his manner surprisingly relaxed. "Why are you so afraid? I just want to get rid of this handgun. It's been bothering me." He then addressed the group, "Everyone, calm down, let's talk this through. I can't agree to your demand, and it's impossible for anyone to take care of the supplies for the entire community. More importantly, you are all smart people who have managed to control your own building's inhabitants in these difficult times. You don't care as much about your neighbors as you do about yourselves, do you?" Zhang Yi slammed his hand on the table, emphasizing his next words. "These are my conditions for working together. If you don't like them, then we'll have to fight. I can provide food, but there's a catch: only enough for 10 people in each building. How you distribute it and who receives it is up to you. You must figure it out in your own building." Zhang Yi shrugged, saying he could only feed 300 people a day at most. Chen Lingyu was angry when she heard that. "No way. Are you looking down on us? 10 servings of supplies are not enough. I have 76 survivors with me, and more than 20 of them are from my company. How do we split that?" I hit the table with my gun when I saw that. There was no point in talking anymore. It was time for war. Wang Tianfeng came forward quickly when he heard that. "Don't mind this woman, she doesn't speak for all of us. But 10 people per building is too little." One Chang also said the same thing. They couldn't explain this to the other building owners. "Could we get more?" I loaded my gun then. "Do you think I'm a saint? I feed 300 people a day and you still want more?" Li Jian came close and said, "Zhang Yi, calm down. Let's talk. Tell us your other terms first." I put my food on the table then. "Let's talk about what you have to do now. We can't survive by just looking for supplies. We don't know how long this snow will last." I threw a bag of seeds on the table. "We have to work for ourselves to have enough. I found these seeds outside. I think we can grow crops. That's the only way to have a steady supply of food." Chen Lingyu and her group were shocked when they heard that. "Zhang Yi, are you crazy? It's -80 degrees outside. The snow is a meter thick. Nothing can grow there. I grinned mischievously. Come on, can't you dig through the thick snow? There's plenty of land outside just waiting to be farmed. If we work together and plant crops, we can have a sustainable food supply and build a better future. Who knows how long this snow will last, but with hard work and determination, we can make the most of it. Even if I gave you 1,000 snowmobiles, the outside supplies would eventually run out. So, why not start today and learn from our ancestors to work with our own hands to grow food? If I see tangible progress in your farming, I'm willing to provide more supplies, including tobacco, clothes, and medical supplies. Upon hearing this, Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang were overjoyed. Brother Zhang Yi, can you also provide cigarettes? They asked, their faces lighting up with excitement. We haven't smoked since the snow disaster began, and we're almost suffocating now. I smiled and pulled out a pack of cigarettes from my pocket, offering them one each. They eagerly accepted and lit up, their faces filled with pure enjoyment. As long as we get cigarettes daily, we'll agree to any conditions, they said. Li Jian, who was on the sidelines, tried to intervene, but I interrupted him. No problem, I can provide a pack for both of you every day. I then happily reached an agreement with Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang. Seeing this scene, Wang Tian and his companions could only sigh in exasperation. These two fools were bought off so easily, they muttered. Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang, however, defended their decision. The conditions Zhang Yi offered are already very good, they said. We'll do as he said. Li Jian tried to negotiate for more conditions, but Wang Chong interrupted him. What's there to negotiate? Zhang Yi has already given us a lot of respect. We should consider his difficulties, don't you think? This left Li Jian speechless, and the meeting ended with Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang agreeing to Zhang Yi's conditions. As they left the room, Zhang Yunian, the building owner, spoke up. It's not just up to the five of us. We should also consult the other building owners who aren't here. Hearing this, Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang once again acted like the inept teammates they were, saying, didn't we agree that just the five of us would make the decision? Ignoring their comments, as I gazed out the window, I noticed a crowd of people assembling at the door of Building 25, my current location. Seeing this, I drew my pistol and shouted, what's the meaning of this? Did you arrange for these people to ambush us during the negotiation? Wang Chong raised his hands in surrender. Brother Zhang Yi, all the building owners are here. Who dared to ambush? Isn't that just seeking death? Li Jian quickly explained, it seems that those people below couldn't wait and started organizing an attack on their own. I pointed my gun at them threateningly and shouted, sit down and stay still. Just then, Uncle and his men arrived in the negotiation room and temporarily restrained the five of them. I went to the balcony with my heavy gun and took aim at the man leading the charge. With a single shot, I took out two of the lackeys, instantly blasting their heads. The group was panicked and disarrayed, with everyone taking cover. I couldn't help but smile at their fear. The more scared you are, the more excited I become. I fired several more shots, taking out a few more lackeys. The five in the negotiation room dared not even breathe. After wiping the smoking barrel of my gun, I turned to them and asked, do any of you have any objections now? Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang were the first to raise their hands, we have no objections. Chen Linju and Zhang Yinyan followed suit, agreeing to my terms. Seeing this, Li Jian couldn't say much and reluctantly raised his hand in agreement. I smiled and said, good, if everyone had been this reasonable from the start, it would have been better, right? Why force me to act? Peace is more profitable. I patted Li Jian on the shoulder and said, go back and do as I told you. No tricks. With the negotiations concluded amicably, Li Jian and the others left Building 25. Just as my neighbors were concerned about my well-being, I approached them with a smile, saying, don't worry, everything has been settled. Hearing this, they began to flatter me. It is my belief that these individuals exhibit a level of ignorance and incompetence that warrants teaching them a lesson, perhaps through the means of a few well-aimed bullets from a sniper rifle, to showcase your exceptional abilities. Following this display, I proceeded to elaborate on the intricate details of the negotiations to all present. On hearing the terms, a sense of concern was palpable among my neighbors, who questioned the rationale behind providing such an abundance of food to these people on a daily basis. After all, our own provisions barely suffice for our own needs. In response, I adorned a warm smile and reassured them with a simple reply. Contemplate for a moment. If we were to reject these terms, do you honestly believe we could withstand the challenge of facing hundreds among their vast numbers? Speaking with an air of righteous indignation, I continued to address their anxieties. Rest assured, there is no need for excessive worry. I solemnly pledge, as long as I, Zhang Yiyu, draw breath, not a single one of you shall know the pangs of hunger. Please place your trust in me. These heartfelt words stirred deep emotions within them, causing some to shed tears. In this desolate post-apocalyptic world, where food is scarce and warmth is a precious commodity, having a leader such as myself is undeniably a true blessing. In response, they all made a solemn vow to stand alongside me until the very end. However, Uncle Yu observed the unfolding events with a look of puzzlement. It is understandable, for at the end of the world, one would scarcely expect anyone to willingly adopt the role of a saint, would they? With a gentle smile, I dispelled his doubts, encouraging him not to overanalyze the situation. Emphasizing that our collaboration with these adversaries represents nothing more than a temporary measure. I then proceeded to outline my original plan to Uncle Yu in meticulous detail. Initially, my concept entailed enticing all of their leaders into our midst, subsequently eliminating them in one fell swoop. Deprived of their leaders, the other factions would be rendered leaderless, thus making them significantly easier to conquer. However, to our surprise, they dispatched only a mere 5 representatives. Consequently, we must now adapt our approach and extend our strategy, while also ensuring the provision of sustenance for 300 individuals among their ranks on a daily basis. This deliberate discrepancy in the distribution of resources amongst them will inevitably sow the seeds of internal conflict, ultimately leading them to turn against one another. At that juncture, we can simply recline and reap the rewards of this carefully orchestrated plan. Upon hearing these revelations, Uncle Yu experienced a moment of clarity, recognizing my penchant for always thinking several steps ahead. He acknowledged that if he were in my position, he may have been inclined to confront these adversaries head-on without such foresight. Gazing through the window at the fallen bodies that lay outside, I explained that, for now, I am merely utilizing the ample resources at our disposal to gradually diminish the strength of our adversaries. Although we remain largely unaware of the current state of the external world, it is certain that other, more menacing groups will emerge. If we truly desire to establish ourselves securely within this post-apocalyptic realm, we must possess substantial firepower and fortify our stronghold. Observing Uncle Yu's pensive expression, it became evident that he had absorbed the magnitude of my words. "You are absolutely right, Zhang Yi," he conceded. "This is only the beginning of our trials. The challenges that lay ahead are uncertain." In this moment, Uncle Yu, who stood beside me, chuckled and remarked, "You're asking them to plant corn in this cold weather, Zhang Yi. Are you toying with them?" In response, I simply smiled and explained, "All I'm doing is sapping their energy. Most people are struggling to find enough food to survive these days. Even if they were to contemplate resisting in the future, they wouldn't have the strength to do so." Directing my gaze seriously at Uncle Yu, I conveyed the importance of keeping our conversation confidential, emphasizing the need to proceed as planned. It is essential for us to remain vigilant not just against external threats, but also against potential betrayal from individuals within this building. Upon hearing this, Uncle Yu nodded and affirmed his commitment to adhere to my directives, acknowledging the dependency of his family on me.
Please to channel my Sakrapara. Sakrapara.
I returned to my secure abode, where I found Zhu Qir in the act of practicing yoga in the bedroom.
Yeah, boy.
Her face brightened upon seeing me, and she inquired about the outcome of the negotiations. Without saying a word, I lifted her up and reassured her, stating that everything was under control. Utilizing a few bullets and a grenade, I managed to secure a concession from the opposition. Sensing potential danger outside, I advised her to remain indoors for a while. assuring her that the unwanted individuals would soon be eradicated. Additionally, I adopted a protective demeanor and urged her to exercise caution. On the following morning, a sizable group of residents congregated in front of Unit 25, driven by desperation to secure a meal and planting crops. Meanwhile, my two companions oversaw their labor. Stepping out from the building entrance, I was greeted with excitement from Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang. In response to their inquiries about joining me on my quest for supplies, I smiled and explained that my snowmobile couldn't accommodate additional passengers and that it was more practical to utilize the space for additional provisions. Encouraging them to await my return, I addressed the working crowd, urging them to perform their tasks diligently. Upon my return, I will be evaluating your progress. If it does not meet expectations, food will not be provided. Upon hearing this, the group intensified their efforts, handling their tasks with determination. As I departed, Wang Chang and Huang Tianfang engaged in whispers, discussing their plan to seize my vehicle. Instead of searching for food, my first action was to make my way to the Tianhai City Pet Hospital. There, I scoured the pharmacy and quickly located a box of rat poison. This particular poison, once diluted, is undetectable as it lacks both color and taste. It is typically employed to euthanize pets that cannot be saved, but now it could serve as an effective means to address the audacious behavior of certain individuals. If not for my concerns, they would ravage the building. I would not even consider providing sustenance for 3 people, let alone 300. Everyone must rely on their own capabilities to survive in this dystopian world. Why should I assume the role of a benevolent figure? This presents an opportunity to expedite their departure to the afterlife. However, I must maintain appearances. Thus, I embarked on a search for essential supplies throughout the city and returned to the community with bags filled with provisions. The neighbors were astounded by the quantity of supplies I had acquired. In response to their inquiries, I simply smiled and stated that the accumulation of supplies was due to sheer luck, emphasizing the challenge posed by the accumulating snow. Subsequently, I contacted the owners of the other units and arranged for them to collect the day's provisions. Surprisingly, these individuals exhibited heightened caution, with each unit sending only a single representative, evidencing their fear of potential retribution. After distributing the supplies, I expressed a desire for unity among the homeowners, projecting an image of trust and cooperation. Naturally, this was to allay their suspicions and relax their guard. As anticipated, emotions ran high among the group. They agreed with Johnny's sentiments, expressing determination to overcome their challenges through collaboration. To halt their exuberant cheers, I clapped my hands and announced that the food distribution was complete, permitting everyone to return to their homes, eat heartily, and prepare for a day of diligent farming ahead. The neighbors departed joyfully upon hearing this. However, as I observed their departing figures, I allowed myself a cold chuckle. These troublesome individuals would soon be removed from the community for good. Afterward, I returned to my secure residence, instructed Joe Care to prepare dinner, and indulged in a soothing hot shower. Once these problematic individuals were dealt with, I would need to find a more secure location to start anew. As each representative collected their share of food and departed, promptly returned to their respective buildings, observing Wang Chong's elation as his subordinate returned with the provisions. Despite the inquiries from his underling, Wang Chong eagerly rummaged through the food and discovered an unopened pack of cigarettes, expressing his approval of Johnny's reliability. His younger gang members agitatedly pleaded for cigarettes, prompting Wang Chong to distribute them reluctantly, fearing a loss of authority if he did not comply. Following this, Wang Chong proceeded to call all his associates to distribute the day's food, leading to a gathering of individuals indulging in a meal in the living room. Observing this scene, Wang Chong finally relaxed, convinced that Zhang Yi had not tampered with the provisions. The prospect of living off others while exerting minimal effort appeared quite appealing, as they could continue deceiving the hardworking homeowners. Meanwhile, the homeowners continued to work enthusiastically with the belief that their diligent efforts would ensure food provision. However, after a day's labor, they found themselves without any sustenance. Pandemonium had broken out in every building of the community as residents loudly disputed over the meager rations they had been given. "Where is the food we were promised?" they cried. "We worked all day and have nothing to show for it." The unit owners sneered in response, "You expect food for doing nothing. In what world does that make sense?" The constant arguing had become a daily occurrence and it was starting to wear on my nerves. But this was exactly what I wanted for them to become so desperate and divided that they would turn against each other. One morning, I rose early and made my way to Uncle Yu's unit. "Uncle, I fear that the unequal distribution of food will soon lead to riots," I warned him. "Please be careful." With that, I hopped on my snowmobile and set off in search of more supplies. But instead of bringing back a bounty, I returned with even less than before. "Supplies are scarce outside," I said with a smirk. "We'll have to make do with what we have today. I'll try my best to find more tomorrow." As predicted, chaos erupted that night. Desperate for a meal, some residents turned against each other, resorting to violence and pushing their neighbors off high-rise buildings. The community was in a state of utter chaos, with the sounds of fighting and screams echoing through the streets. But I sat at home, listening to classical music and enjoying a leisurely evening. How many would die that night? The next morning, I ventured out of my building with Uncle Yu and a few others. The scene that greeted us was one of utter devastation. Hundreds of bodies were strewn about the community and the surrounding buildings were stained with blackened, congealed blood. It was clear that the riot had been intense. "Do we still need to work today?" Uncle Yu asked me, his voice shaking with fear. "Why wouldn't we?" I replied, gesturing to a corpse nearby. "You really thought I was a saint, didn't you? I'm not obligated to support you all. If you want food, you'll have to work for it." The group looked at me in shock as I continued, "Of course, if you end up like these bodies, you won't have to work anymore." As the survivors gazed upon the carnage, they couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of gratitude. At least they weren't among the fallen, and they knew they were lucky to be alive. But Uncle Yu's somber expression told a different story. He glanced at the scores of bodies littering the ground, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and despair, and sighed heavily, wondering if they should even bother calling for reinforcements from other buildings. I just shrugged and smiled, my voice dripping with malice, knowing that any help would be too little, too late. "Let's just wait and see," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Their internal conflicts will only continue to intensify, and one side will eventually perish." The next day, the community was abuzz with activity, but the number of workers was conspicuously lower. Uncle Yu was perplexed. Why would they bother working if they knew they might not get paid? But I knew better. People were driven by their desires, and the hope of survival was a powerful motivator. Those who were working were addressing the food issue head-on, while those who rebelled were taking a risky gamble. As I prepared to leave for another search for supplies, Chen Ling-yu stopped me with a proposal for collaboration. She knew that the current state of affairs was unsustainable, and she believed that scientific management methods could help us govern the community and even expand our territory. But I knew that her true intentions were far more sinister. "Chen Ling-yu, I appreciate your willingness to collaborate," I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. "But I'm afraid I cannot trust you. Your methods are too unpredictable." I leaned in closer, my eyes locked onto hers. "I have a better idea. Why don't we let the community decide? Let them vote on who they want to lead them. That way, everyone will be satisfied, and we can finally put this conflict to rest." Chen Ling-yu's eyes narrowed, her face twisting into a scowl. "You expect me to let the community decide? Are you mad? I am the only one who truly understands the needs of this community. I am the only one who can lead them to prosperity." I chuckled, my voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, how sweet. You truly believe that, don't you? But let me tell you, Chen Ling-yu, no one is above criticism. Not even you. And if you continue to resist the will of the people, they will rise up and overthrow you." Chen Ling-yu's face paled, her eyes flashing with anger. "You dare to threaten me? I will not be intimidated by the likes of you, Zhang Yi. I will do whatever it takes to maintain order in this community." I smiled, my voice dripping with malice. "Oh, I'm not threatening you, Chen Ling-yu. I'm simply stating the facts. And if you don't listen, you will be the one who suffers the consequences. Establishing a new kingdom in this post-apocalyptic world wouldn't be a problem, but I simply laughed at the absurdity of the situation. This was exactly what I wanted to see: the desperation and the struggle for power in a world gone mad. And now, Chen Ling-yu expected me to play the generous king and provide for these 2,000 people without any expectations in return. Please. I grabbed her shoulder, my grip tightening as I spoke. You used this same rhetoric to deceive many people before the apocalypse, didn't you? You promised them a better world, a brighter future. But now, the grass on their graves must be really tall, don't you think? Do you really think I'm dumb enough to fall for your tricks again? I pushed her away, my anger and disgust evident in my voice. I'm not interested in any of your plans, Chen Lingyu. Find someone else to play your emperor. I have better things to do than be your pawn. Chen Lingyu pleaded with me, her voice desperate, but I turned my back on her and walked away. I had better things to do than waste my time on her futile plans. As I walked, I noticed Li Jian leading his team to clear and cultivate the land. To my surprise, none of his team had suffered any casualties so far. This guy must have some skills. Zhang Yi, what brings you here? Li Jian asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I smiled, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm just here to admire your team's skills. You know, you could have chosen to protect the most useful people and abandon the rest. But instead, you've chosen to play the saint in this post-apocalyptic world. It's your own doing. I didn't wait for his response and walked away, leaving him to his own thoughts. Li Jian sighed heavily, his inner moral dilemma weighing on him. At that moment, Wang Chang and Huang Tianfeng approached me, their faces filled with hope. Bro Zhang, aren't you going out to find food today? They asked, their voices eager. I smiled, my voice dripping with malice. Be patient, my friends. I'm about to head out, and we'll make sure to get some good citadel and liquor for you. The two brothers were visibly excited, their faces lighting up at the mention of food and drink. Zhang Yi, you're our savior in this world, they said, their voices filled with gratitude. Our lives are in your hands now. I chuckled, my eyes glinting with amusement. Come on, my friends, let's go find some food and have a good time. And with that, I led my group of survivors out into the desolate wasteland, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of humanity, I knew that from now on, we were all brothers in this post-apocalyptic world. I would do my best to provide for everyone, no matter their background or situation. I distributed food to the representatives of each building, just as I had done every day since the beginning of this new era. But as I looked around, I noticed that several building owners who had been hiding and not showing themselves approached me. Brother Zhang Yi, you can't play favorites, one of them said, his voice filled with entitlement. Next time, could you also bring us some citronella candles? We won't trouble you, just 1 pack a day will do. I felt a twinge of unease at their audacity, but I reluctantly agreed, promising to provide for them starting the next day. With my affirmative answer, the group left contentedly. However, 2 neighbors who witnessed the scene expressed their discontent. These guys are going too far, one of them said, their voice filled with anger. You already generously provide them with food, and now they want citronella candles too. They're asking for citronella candles today, and tomorrow they'll be demanding liquor. It's not fair. I just smiled, my mind racing with the implications of their words. They were right. I shouldn't play favorites. But how could I not, when these building owners were the only ones who had shown any initiative in this desolate wasteland? The two stood there, stunned. They never expected someone as ruthless as me to be so amenable at that moment. Jealousy then consumed them, and they toiled 18 hours a day to barely get by. Why did these building owners deserve citronella candles when they had done nothing but suffer? Afterwards, I retreated home, laying on my couch, contemplating my next steps. The chaos of recent days had left over half of the community's population dead or injured, and those left were probably going to turn on each other soon. If I continued in this manner, things would only get worse for me. It was time to settle things with these people once and for all. Early the next day, I went to a supermarket to scavenge supplies. If I was to send them off, I might as well prepare their last meal. I laced all the food with a heavy dose of rat poison, knowing that a small bite would be enough to end them. But as I stood there, surrounded by the food, I felt uneasy. Although I provided food for them every day, it was never enough for everyone, apart from the building owners demanding citronella candles. No one else made any other requests. Could it be that they were also waiting for the right moment? Thinking about my safe house and weapons, I felt a bit more reassured, knowing that any devious schemes would be meaningless before overwhelming firepower. But as I walked back home, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. I had always been ruthless in this post-apocalyptic world, but now I was starting to question my own motivations. Why was I doing this? What was my end game? The questions swirled in my head, but I knew I had to keep moving forward, no matter what. As I brought back a bounty of supplies to the community, Uncle Yu and his group had been waiting for a while. I took out my phone and notified the representatives of each building to come and collect today's food. Soon after, a crowd arrived, eager for their daily ration. Seeing this, I smirked to myself, thinking, enjoy your last meal. As usual, I distributed food to each representative, but this time, I had laced it with a heavy dose of rat poison. A single bite would be fatal. Surprisingly, more than half of the building owners came in person this time, perhaps thinking that they could get a better deal. However, just as I bent down to distribute the food, I heard a shout from behind. Attack! Wang Chong commanded, drawing a gun and aiming it at me. Damn it, I let my guard down, I thought, realizing he had a weapon. In the nick of time, Uncle Yu shielded me, taking 3 bullets. I quickly held onto Uncle Yu, who fell and shouted at Wang Chong and the others. What the hell do you think you're doing? At that moment, a spy hidden in Building 25 finally revealed himself, swinging a shovel at me. Reacting quickly, I pulled out a submachine gun from my pocket and said, if you're so eager to die, I'll oblige. I opened fire, hitting several in the front row. Seeing this, the crowd behind panicked. Run, he's got a submachine gun. But I didn't hesitate, continuing my barrage with my sharp shooting skills. Almost every owner was shot in the head by me. After emptying my submachine gun, I pulled out 2 handguns from my pocket, declaring, it's too late to run now. All of you are going to die. Upon hearing my words, both Wang Chong and Huang Tianfang were paralyzed with fear. Other Zhang Yi, let us explain, give us another chance, they pleaded, but in response, they were met with 2 bullets from my guns. You should have thought of this day, I murmured coldly. Without showing any emotion, I approached the last of them, Chen Lingyu, who seemed utterly terrified. I had nothing to do with this, she begged. I have a family to take care of. But before she could finish her plea, I pulled the trigger. Even though I knew most people were unaware of the conspiracy, I couldn't show any mercy. This was the only way to maintain order in this post-apocalyptic world. The sound of gunfire echoed through the air as the last of the building owners fell to the ground. I stood there, my heartbeat slowing down, my eyes fixed on the carnage before me. It was a brutal reminder that in this world, strength and ruthlessness were the only currencies that mattered. But I knew that I had to keep moving forward, no matter what. There would always be another threat, another enemy to eliminate. The cycle of violence would never end, but I was ready for it. As I stood amidst the carnage, surveying the aftermath of the avalanche I had unleashed, I felt nothing. The cycle of life and death had become so familiar to me that it no longer elicited any emotional response. But for a moment, I was taken aback by the sight of Uncle Yu, who had taken 3 bullets and yet was still clinging to life. I quickly pulled out an adrenaline shot from my alternate space and injected it into his chest as 2 neighbors sneaked glances at me. Where are you staring at? I shouted, feeling a sense of paranoia creeping in. Help me, I urged them, fearful that they might be planning to betray me. With their help, I transported Uncle Yu to my home on a stretcher, while Li Mei rushed over with tears streaming down her face. Old Yu was perfectly fine. How could this happen? She wailed, her distress palpable. Why did he play the hero and take a bullet for someone else? How can he leave us behind like this? I listened to her lament, my anger simmering beneath the surface. Stop your mourning, I snapped, my voice cold and detached. Uncle Yu is not dead. She is the power to save him. Shu Kier is the chief doctor at the city hospital. She'll know what to do. But Li Mei continued to weep, her tears falling like rain. If old Yu can't be saved, then I don't want to live either. My poor daughter will suffer. Shani, I hope you can take care of her. I looked at her with confusion, my thoughts racing. We haven't even started the rescue process and they're already making arrangements for what comes after. Caught off guard by my question, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for us all. Seili May hesitated, trying to explain herself. Of course, I hope with all my heart that Uncle Yu will be fine. But we should be prepared for the worst, right? Deep inside, she was thinking, Uncle Yu has been my long-term ticket to a comfortable life. Shani, you can't let a sacrifice be in vain. Soon, Uncle Yu was brought to the entrance of my home, and I suggested that Seili May and the others leave and let Shu Kier perform surgery to remove the bullet from Uncle Yu. However, Seili May, feigning concern, said, Old Yu needs me by his side at this time. I can't leave him. Seeing the subtle twitches on Uncle Yu's face, I reluctantly agreed to let her stay. After all, despite all the circumstances, Uncle Yu had saved my life. No matter how heartless I might be, I couldn't just drive away the woman he cared for. As we brought Uncle Yu inside, Seili May shed tears of emotion. This was the place she had dreamt of residing in ever since the snowstorm began. She relished the indoor warmth, enjoying not just the cozy fireplace, but also the fresh food available. Anyone who walked in would wish to stay and never leave. Soon enough, Seili May made herself at home, heading to the kitchen to pour a cup of hot water. Shu Kier and I exchanged speechless glances. She really thinks this is her home, flushed with excitement. Seili May asked, Do you have any milk powder? I want to prepare a warm bottle for the baby, infuriating me. I snapped, Don't you have your own milk? Are you seriously treating this place as your own? Using Uncle Yu as a shield, Seili May retorted, The baby needs to eat. Old Yu adores the baby. Coldly, I responded, Cut the nonsense. Either help out or leave. Without another word, I headed to the generator room, storing everything in sight into my spatial dimension. Then, I retrieved a white foldable bed from the same dimension, converting the area into a makeshift operating room. Seili May watched in astonishment. Damn. Are you performing magic or what? Ignoring her, I turned to Shu Kier. Tell me whatever medicines and medical equipment you need. I'll provide whatever I can. We must save Uncle Yu no matter what. Shu Kier, as the chief doctor at the city hospital, certainly had newer stuff, but first, she had to assess Uncle Yu's injuries. As she removed his shirt, her brow furrowed in concern. The bullet's location suggested potential internal organ damage. Given the current medical conditions, it seemed impossible to save Uncle Yu upon hearing the grim prognosis. Seili May put on a theatrical display of tears. If old Yu goes, how will my daughter and I survive? I pointed at her angrily. Stop with the theatrics. If your crying affects Uncle Yu's surgery, then you might as well go to hell and join him in mourning. Understand? At my words, Seili May wiped her tears, but internally, she thought it's much more comfortable outside with hot water and food. Why would I want to stay in here? However, I quickly blocked her path. Just a moment ago you said you wouldn't leave Uncle Yu's side, and now you think you're a hindrance. Listen closely, you'll stay right here and assist where needed. Even if you're just watching, it'll be an encouragement for Uncle Yu. If you dare step out of this room, you'll bear the consequences. With that, I turned away and swiftly made my way to the first-floor hall, where a group of neighbors were fervently explaining their non-involvement in the attempted murder. I had no patience for their excuses. Some had betrayed and ambushed, leading to Uncle Yu's critical injuries, and I would make them pay for their treachery. But now, our immediate priority was to launch a counterattack. Those not participating would be considered traitors, facing consequences similar to the dead bodies outside. Hearing this, expressions of unease spread across the neighbors' faces, not to mention the matter of traitors, but just the sheer number of residents in the complex was intimidating. Their modest assembly paled in insignificance when measured against our might. Gesturing towards the meticulously arranged combat provisions, I delegated the task at hand, securing exits and vigilantly surveying the surroundings. A clear directive was issued. Any attempt at escape should be met with decisive action. I, personally, undertook the responsibility of dealing with those confined within the building, ensuring they grasped the repercussions of crossing my path. Our group approached the designated building, marked as number 21. Unbeknownst to us, Wolfgang, situated on the upper floors, discerned an anomaly, recognizing my leadership at the forefront. Fear had already gripped many of their ranks in this post-apocalyptic world, where most only possessed primitive melee weapons. Armed with a submachine gun, I stood as an unchallenged force. Nevertheless, there were audacious souls among them, steadfastly defending their claimed territory within the dimly lit hallways, diminishing the efficacy of firearms. Instructing my men to secure all exits, preventing any potential escapes through windows, I proceeded to approach building number 21 alone. On the ground floor, devoid of onlookers, I accessed an alternate space, retrieving a substantial pile of wood and clothing, strategically placing them around the hall. A liberal application of gasoline connected these elements, forming volatile trails. Igniting my lighter, I mused about the frigid external conditions. With a nonchalant toss, the lighter ignited the gasoline, and flames swiftly consumed the ground floor. Exiting the scene composedly, I left gang's crew to reckon with the growing inferno. Anticipating my ascent, they soon realized the unexpected turn of events. Panic set in as they discovered the building was ablaze, attributing it to Jianji and his gang. Attempts to open the windows were thwarted by the extreme cold, freezing them shut. Without the means to break through, they found themselves trapped within the smoky confines. Calmly emerging from the ground floor hall, I pointed towards the engulfed structure, leaving behind a smoldering testament to their defiance. I asserted confidently, the responsibility now rests upon all of you. Be meticulous, ensuring not a single soul slips through the cracks. A wave of emotion swept over me as I gazed at the towering inferno fueled by hunger and desperation. It was evident that these individuals, driven by the dire circumstances, would eventually turn their weapons against me. The blame lay squarely on their incompetent leader who had unwisely provoked someone he shouldn't have. As the flames surged, the scorching heat became unbearable for many, prompting desperate leaps from balconies that ended with bone-crushing crashes into the snow below. Whether burned alive or crippled by the fall, their fate was sealed. Leading the charge, more and more residents succumbed to the instinct to escape the encroaching fire. Some from lower floors survived the falls, only to realize they had exchanged one peril for another. Amidst the chaos, a seemingly gentle woman from the crowd, unaccustomed to violence, swiftly plunged a knife into the body of an elderly neighbor she had once spent her days with. Lee, in the midst of the shocked reactions, simply smiled and remarked, "We all have to do what it takes to survive. I can't be left behind." As the exodus from Building 21 continued, Lee hurriedly advanced, eager to secure credit for her actions. Observing the raging fire, my heart remained untouched by pity. Wang Chan's Building 21 was now condemned, its inhabitants paying the price for their betrayal. Despite my daily provisions of food and cigarettes, they had conspired against me in the shadows, leaving me with no choice but to retaliate mercilessly. The horrifying spectacle was not limited to Building 21, residents from other buildings watched in trepidation. Anxiety gripped their hearts as they feared a similar fate might befall them. Despite Wang Chan's scheming, his destiny bore the marks of bullet holes. Yet, some clung to the hope of clemency, believing they could escape retribution by virtue of not participating in the assassination plot. With Building 21 dealt with, I led my group toward Building 26, a sense of anticipation fueling my steps, driven by the enigmatic Huang Tianfeng. Upon witnessing our approach, the residents of Building 26 frantically attempted to distance themselves from the unfolding situation. Desperation colored their pleas as they disavowed any involvement, laying the blame squarely on Huang Tianfeng. "This has nothing to do with us. Zhang Yi, please don't wrongfully accuse the innocent," they implored. In response, laughter escaped my lips. "You claim innocence? I find that hard to believe. Do you dare call yourselves good after surviving this long? Surely, each of you must have taken a few lives." Without hesitation, I replicated the process, subjecting Building 26 to its own fiery ordeal. The flames danced in tandem with the chaos, signaling my retribution against those implicated in the attempted assassination. As the fifth building succumbed to the blaze, restlessness spread among residents from other structures. Anxiety gripped them, fearing I might unleash further destruction, reducing every standing edifice to ashes. However, I surprised them by producing a megaphone from my pocket, addressing the anxious crowd. I declared, "There's no need to worry. While I, Zhang Yi, may not be a saint, I won't kill without reason. Those who treat me with friendliness will be spared." A collective sigh of relief swept through the faces of many residents, finally glimpsing a flicker of hope for survival. Yet, skepticism lingered among some, murmuring that they were unjustly entangled in this chaos. Brushing aside their doubts, I instructed everyone to rest, but certain neighbors chose to remain, drawn to the warmth of the fire after enduring months of relentless cold. Turning my attention to the fallen spies, I pondered the betrayal of once loyal individuals. A search through their belongings yielded phones, and a revelation emerged as I delved into their chat history. With the buildings connected to the assassination dealt with, I promptly returned to my safe house. The steady rhythm of the heart rate monitor indicated that Uncle Yi was out of danger. A smile exchanged with Zhu Qier, the city's lead surgeon, conveyed gratitude for her exceptional skills. As we conversed, Xiao Li approached, cradling her child, and made a humble request. "Zhang Yi, could you get something for me and my baby to eat? We've been hungry all day." Realizing the extended duration of the surgery, I decided to treat our skilled doctor, pulling out a pack of instant noodles from my pocket with a casual remark. "We should show our appreciation to the great Dr. Zhu here." In the wake of Uncle Yi's woman expressing her hunger, I resolved not to let anyone go unfed. Subsequently, I took the initiative to head out for a meal with Zhu Qier. However, Xiao Li Mei persisted in her hunger, pressing me for more options. Despite seeing eggs and chicken legs in the kitchen earlier, my patience wore thin with this persistent request. It seemed that this cunning girl always yearned for more, and were it not for Uncle Yi, I might have contemplated dismissing her altogether. Responding with a cold demeanor, I stated, "It's the end of the world. This pack of noodles is as valuable as gold. Eat it or leave it." Post our modest meal, Zhu Qier and I returned to the bedroom. Amidst our private space, she sighed, acknowledging the additional hassle brought about by Xiao Li Mei. In an attempt to reassure her, I offered words of comfort while tending to her tired muscles. "Don't worry, she won't stay long," I assured her. My subsequent inquiry revolved around Uncle Yi's condition, prompting Zhu Qier to respond with a mysterious tone. According to logic, Uncle Yi shouldn't have survived given the significant blood loss. However, an inexplicable turn of events occurred just as his fading heart rate hinted at the inevitability of his demise. His wounds visibly began to heal. Stunned by this revelation, I pondered the possibility that Uncle Yi might have awakened some special ability. Reflecting on my own origin of spatial ability triggered by a supernova explosion, I grappled with the mystery of why I seemed to be the sole recipient of such powers in our community of thousands. A sudden realization struck me: Uncle Yi's near-death state mirrored the circumstances leading to my own awakening. Could this be the stringent condition required to unlock such abilities? Grateful that Uncle Yi had encountered me, I contemplated the alternative, acknowledging that he might have needed an ability to resurrect on the spot, with death being the only alternative. With this understanding, I gently patted Zhu Qier's shoulder, instructing her to administer a daily dose of sedative to Uncle Yi. Taken aback, she questioned whether Uncle Yi had awakened an ability similar to mine. I nodded, conceding that the specifics of Uncle Yi's newfound abilities remained unclear. Nevertheless, I expressed concern about the potential consequences, envisioning scenarios where he could transform into a force akin to the Hulk, wreaking havoc on our home. Tasking Zhu Qier with administering the sedatives, I rose and headed to the living room, contemplating the uncertainties that lay ahead. Zhu Qier wore a concerned expression as she voiced her apprehensions about Xiao Li Mei taking care of Uncle Yi. She questioned the wisdom of entrusting such responsibility to someone seemingly so self-centered. In response, I reassured Zhu Qier, emphasizing that while Xiao Li Mei may be selfish, she understands the gravity of the situation. The stakes are clear to her. If anything untoward happens to Uncle Yi, she risks being expelled. Meanwhile, Xiao Li Mei was in the living room, scouring for sustenance. With a stern tone, I intervened, instructing her to stop searching, as I had already stowed everything away. She was to stay with Uncle Yi and attend to his daily needs. Confronted by my serious demeanor, Xiao Li Mei reluctantly complied and entered the room. My next task was to eliminate any potential threats within the building, leading me to find myself fully armed in front of a particular door. Without hesitation, I shot through the lock and forcefully kicked the door open. A disheveled woman, armed with a kitchen knife, lunged at me. Swiftly, I raised a riot shield to block her attack and then disarmed her with a deft slap. Addressing her as Fan Uching, I remarked on her survival, suggesting her involvement in a sinister plot with Wang Chong. Unnerved, Fan Uching vehemently denied any involvement, claiming the impossibility of orchestrating the demise of so many people. Chuckling at her naivety, I raised a wooden stick, recounting the impact of her meddling in my past life and the additional years I could have lived. Viciously striking her left leg, I then dragged her toward the window with the intention of throwing her out. Fear finally gripped Fawn Uching as she pleaded for mercy, promising never to repeat her mistakes. Recalling the pain of cannibalization in my past life, I hesitated no longer, releasing my grip and allowing Fawn Uching to plummet from the 25th floor. The ensuing thud, accompanied by the creation of a deep crater in the snowy ground, left me unmoved. This was my revenge for the injustices of my past life. The following morning, I visited the sick room to check on Uncle Yi. Unexpectedly, the transformation had drastically accelerated Uncle Yi's healing speed, with his gunshot wound mostly healed in just a day, a pace dozens of times faster than that of an ordinary person. I directed Zhu Qier to maintain constant vigilance over Uncle Yi's condition, ensuring that unforeseen circumstances were promptly addressed. Without hesitation, Zhu Qier promptly administered a sedative injection to Uncle Yi. Just as this transpired, Xiaoli Mei approached, expressing a need to retrieve her charger and diapers from a particular location. Flashing a smile, I conveyed that urgent matters demanded my immediate attention, but I assured her that I would assist once my pressing tasks were completed. Exiting the room, my countenance swiftly darkened. It was apparent that Xiaoli Mei, with her scheming ways, was persistently seeking my aid. Despite our families residing just a few floors apart, her desire for assistance betrayed a deep-seated fear that leaving might bar her from returning. Recognizing the potential future liability of keeping such a cunning woman around, I resolved to find a suitable way to deal with her. Proceeding to the residential area, my mission to purge potential threats continued. The elimination of such elements was imperative for ensuring our safety in this post-apocalyptic world. At that juncture, Su Hao, a nervously approaching member of the wealthy second generation, claimed to possess crucial information. Despite having largely cleared the compound, I entertained his revelation with a smile, questioning the significance of the intel. Su Hao, looking secretive, whispered about the son of Jiangnan's richest man, spending billions to construct a safe house for the apocalypse. Intrigued by this revelation, I inquired about the location of this purported safe house. Su Hao gestured for me to follow, indicating that discretion was paramount. We made our way to his residence, where Su Hao, rubbing his hands together, disclosed the details of Wang Su Hao's refuge. Skeptical of his motives, I questioned why he chose to share this information. Su Hao confidently patted his chest, expressing his loyalty and the desire to become my subordinate. He believed that with my strength, I could potentially seize control of the extravagant safe house. Amused by his proposition, I retorted, questioning his belief that I could effortlessly take possession of a safe house worth billions. It was at this juncture that Su Hao added a twist to the narrative, revealing that Wang Su Hao was already aware of my presence and activities. Big brother Zhang, Su Hao began, revealing a sinister plot, asked me to lure you over, intending to ambush you and seize your snowmobile and supplies. My fury ignited, and I snapped at him, expressing the intuition that something was amiss. Now that he had confessed, the question remained: how did he wish to meet his end? Su Hao hastily waved his hands, disavowing any daring intentions. Big brother Zhang, I wouldn't dare, he claimed, but my trust in him had already eroded. Rejecting his pleas, I asserted that I knew the truth, but Su Hao implored me sincerely, stating that he genuinely wanted to join forces with me to capture the elusive safe house. Despite his words, I remained cautious and, without hesitation, pulled out a gun, aiming it directly at his forehead. The atmosphere grew tense as I questioned the authenticity of his intentions. Su Hao, paralyzed with fear, begged me not to shoot, vowing the truth of his words. However, before he could complete his plea, I pulled the trigger, leaving him in a state of shock. When Su Hao regained his composure, he realized the bullet hole was mere centimeters from his forehead. Desperation filled him as he pleaded for mercy, swearing by the truth of his intentions. Calmly holstering my gun, I suggested that trust might be possible, but emphasized the need for him to provide a compelling reason. Taking a deep breath, Su Hao began to unveil his motivations. Witnessing my abilities, he believed that aligning with me offered the best chance of survival in the post-apocalyptic world. In contrast, aligning with Wang Xinging would only consign him to the status of a disposable pawn. Su Hao, with resentment deeply etched in his heart, recounted how, even before the apocalypse, he had been Wang Xingying's lackey. Sacrificing his own woman for Wang Xingying's amusement earned him nothing but disdain, and he yearned for a chance at redemption. Observing the genuine rage in Su Hao's eyes, I considered the possibility of collaboration. However, I emphasized the necessity of a solid plan. Su Hao proposed deceiving Wang Xingying, pretending to be allies, until the opportune moment to strike emerged. Skeptical, I responded, "Are you an idiot? You want to take on someone without even knowing their security details." Su Hao, however, claimed to be well versed in Wang's security details, but he had a condition: he demanded a position as my subordinate, threatening silence otherwise. Smirking, I remarked that if he wouldn't talk, there seemed to be no point in keeping him around. Pressing the muzzle of my gun against his forehead, I conveyed a clear message, well aware of the ruthless dynamics at play in this post-apocalyptic world. The information about that safe house became my sole lifeline, and even if it meant facing the consequences, I swore not to reveal it. Impressed by Su Hao's resolute stance, I acknowledged his cleverness and agreed to his terms, with the condition that he must abide by my rules. Su Hao, eager to secure his position, nodded rapidly, pledging unwavering loyalty and a commitment to follow my orders. Having established Su Hao's allegiance, I proceeded to lay out my conditions. First, he was tasked with providing a comprehensive account of the safe house. Second, he was to address a specific nuisance on my behalf, someone I couldn't approach directly. While I had secured Su Hao's loyalty, I chose not to immediately burden him with my request. Instead, I hinted at the perks of being my subordinate, alluding to something valuable I had to bestow upon him. Upon my return to my safe house, I soon made my way to Su Hao's residence, carrying a briefcase. As I began slowly, I revealed certain truths to him, withholding nothing due to our newfound alliance. I disclosed that I was, indeed, a professional assassin, a revelation that brought understanding to Su Hao. He marveled at my impeccable shooting skills, fostering confidence in our future collaboration. Su Hao believed that by remaining by my side, he would secure his survival in the post-apocalyptic world. At this pivotal moment, I extracted a syringe from the briefcase, unveiling a slow-acting poison specifically designed for those with stubborn or malicious intentions. The absence of an antidote ensured death within a month. Su Hao, panicked, vehemently swore his innocence, prompting me to reassure him with a smile. I offered a promise. Once we successfully seized Wang Xingying's safe house, I would immediately provide him with the antidote. Overwhelmed, Su Hao collapsed, realizing that his fate was inexorably tied to the success of our mission. Without further contemplation, I swiftly administered the substance into his neck, declaring him my true subordinate. Assuring Su Hao that there was no immediate threat, I conveyed that the poison would only take effect when the time was right. Drenched in sweat, Su Hao comprehended the irrevocable bond he now shared with me. Advising him to head back home, I assured him that I would contact him if anything further was needed, leaving him to grapple with the weight of our alliance and the impending mission. Observing the retreating figure of the now trembling Su Hao, a smirk played across my face. It appeared that my tactics had worked, successfully instilling a level of intimidation that would make betrayal less likely. His newfound belief that tap water was a deadly poison significantly reduced the chances of him turning against me. Meanwhile, in a hospital room, Uncle Yu had just regained consciousness and Xiaoli Mei was busy whispering in his ear. Little did they know that every word and gesture were under my watchful eye through a surveillance feed. Even teetering on the brink of death, they persisted in their attempts at cunning. With a calculated move, I swung open the room door, feigning surprise. "Uncle Yu, you're finally awake. I'm so relieved you're okay. Otherwise, the guilt would have haunted me for life," I exclaimed. Uncle Yu, grateful, replied with heartfelt words, stating that his life now belonged to me. In response, I chuckled, attributing the turn of events to his own actions. Xiaoli Mei, standing nearby, expressed her gratitude, to which I responded with a smile, declaring us one family and assuring them of my care. As Xiaoli Mei handed me the baby, expressing her intent to fetch some belongings, I assured her not to worry about being locked out. However, as soon as she left, I seized the moment to send a message to Su Hao, signaling the commencement of our planned action. While playing with the baby, my thoughts turned to the harsh reality it faced, reflecting that this course of action was essential to prevent any sinister intentions toward the child. On the other side, Siali May, returning to her door with a joyful demeanor, suddenly faced an unexpected assault. Suhao launched at her, swiftly stabbing her before she could even utter a word in surprise. In desperation, Siali May pleaded for mercy, offering whatever Suhao desired. However, her plea fell on deaf ears as Suhao continued his onslaught until she lay motionless. After ensuring the task was complete, Suhao promptly messaged me, asking when he could get some food. Grinning at the resolution of the issue, I recognized that this preemptive action had prevented potential discord that Siali May might have sown between Uncle Yu and May. Turning to Uncle Yu, I assured him that his family could now stay in peace. "Feel free to depart whenever you wish," I declared, offering Uncle Yu the freedom to make his own choices. His troubled expression suggested hesitation, as he deemed it inappropriate, emphasizing the scarcity of resources and expressing gratitude for the life-saving intervention. I reassured him, reminding him of our shared experiences in life and death, and urged him to stay and recover. However, my attempt at comfort was interrupted by the uncontrollable cries of the baby in my arms. Unable to soothe the infant, I handed the baby over to Zhu Care, who, lacking experience with children, appeared bewildered. A sudden realization prompted me to consider the possibility of a diaper change. Swiftly retrieving a pack of diapers from my storage space, I handed it to Zhu Care. Returning to Uncle Yu's room, I inquired about his condition, and he reported feeling weak with no apparent abnormalities. Uncle Yu, as if sensing something, urged me to check outside, expressing concern for his wife, who had been gone for a while. Instructing Zhu Care to look after Uncle Yu, I armed myself in my room, seizing the opportunity to address pending matters. A message was dispatched to all homeowners, summoning them to room 1301 on the 13th floor for a meeting. This gathering aimed to distribute resources and establish the future management of the community, with our control solidifying over the entire area. As neighbors, excluding Suhao, hastily gathered in room 1301 to discuss community affairs, I overheard their conversations with a smirk. Without hesitation, I threw 2 grenades into the room, catching the unsuspecting neighbors mid-conversation. The abrupt sight of the grenades left them no time to react as a massive explosion erupted, tearing through the room. The balance of power in the community was about to shift drastically. In anticipation of the impending explosion, I strategically positioned a blast shield outside to shield myself from any impact. Walking into the aftermath with a contemplative expression, I mused about the convenience of using grenades in such situations. A surviving neighbor, fueled by rage, voiced his discontent, questioning my actions and reminding me of the assistance they had provided. Responding with a cold smirk, I dismissed his objections, asserting that their survival was indebted to my interventions. Without uttering another word, I ensured he joined the departed. Having successfully exacted my revenge, a profound sense of satisfaction washed over me. All the neighbors who had wronged me in my previous life, excluding Suhao, had now faced their consequences. The community, once rife with threats, was now purged of any potential danger to my security. My singular focus now shifted towards accessing Wang Siming's billion-dollar Safehouse, where I envisioned living out my remaining days in peace and luxury. With a heavy heart, I approached Uncle Yu to deliver the unfortunate news about Sister Sia's demise. Frustration boiled within me as I expressed my realization that what I initially thought were only a few traitors turned out to be the entirety of the traitorous lot. Assuring Uncle Yu of my retaliation in Sister Sia's honor, I witnessed tears streaming down his face. His anger manifested in a powerful punch that left a deep dent in his bed, sending shivers down my spine. Attempting to console Uncle Yu, I admitted to a lapse in proper management on my part. However, I promised to find him a new companion, a young and beautiful wife. In response, Uncle Yu managed an awkward smile, expressing a preference for someone mature. At that moment, Zhu Care entered the room with the crying baby, seeking advice on how to soothe the infant. Reflecting on the situation, I suggested that the baby might be hungry for milk. Zhu Care, lightly punching my chest, retorted that she had no milk to feed the baby. Taking the baby into my arms, I proposed the idea of finding a stepmother for the little one. Zhu Care readily embraced the idea, acknowledging our lack of experience with kids and the potential risks involved. Concerned about any mishaps, I descended to the community with the baby, sparking alarmed whispers among the nearby residents, who wondered if my arrival signaled impending danger. Dispelling their fears, I raised my gun towards the sky and called for Li Jian. Moments later, Li Jian, the manager of Building 18, emerged cautiously, inquiring about my intentions. Wearing a smile, I teased him about his courage, expressing surprise at his bravery, considering the scarcity of resources in the post-apocalyptic environment. Despite the challenges, Building 18, under Li Jian's leadership, boasted the highest number of survivors, earning my respect. Entrusting the baby to Li Jian's care, I acknowledged the presence of mothers in his building and left baby essentials like food, formula, and diapers. Li Jian readily committed to doing his best for the child, arranging for a mother and the community in Building 18 to take on the responsibility. Inquiring about the precise number of survivors and their plans if my food supply ceased, I discovered Li Jian's optimistic outlook for the future, emphasizing that as long as people were alive, there remained hope. Pointing to the cleared-out buildings with ample supplies, I suggested they could sustain themselves for a while. However, Li Jian declined, expressing their reluctance to resort to such measures unless absolutely necessary, foreseeing a grim fate if they embarked on that path. Deeply sighing, I marveled at Li Jian's unwavering commitment to his principles in the face of uncertainty. In a world where the line between life and death blurred, he held on to core values that commanded admiration. Li Jian sighed deeply, wishing he had your skills and abilities. Perhaps then he could guide everyone to safety in this apocalyptic world. He looked at you, Zhang Yi, with a pleading expression. Could you lend us a hand once more? You have supplied enough food for the whole community in the past. Now that many people have perished, your support would be vital for the survivors. I cut him off. Everyone is struggling to cope right now. I'm not a saint or a miracle worker. I may assist you for a while, but can I sustain you indefinitely? And if I ensure everyone has enough to eat, who can assure me that I won't be attacked by the ones I fed? In this apocalypse, it's a miracle to stay alive. I have no lofty goals of being a hero. I then threw a few packets of seeds in front of Li Jian. Take these as a farewell gift. If you want to prosper, you have to earn it. In this apocalyptic world, we all live in darkness, but I see a spark of humanity in you. You can lead everyone to plant these seeds in a farm, or you can consume them now. It's up to you. With that, I turned my back and left. The residents who picked up the seeds looked confused. Can we really grow crops in this freezing weather? At that moment, a professor from the agricultural college urged everyone to quickly secure the seeds. They are our future hope, he said. Seeing this, Li Jian also quickly gathered the seeds. He asked the professor, Professor Go, can we really grow crops in such harsh conditions? With a resolute look, Professor Go replied, humanity has overcome many challenges. Why can't we do it again this time? Hearing this, the other residents didn't hesitate any longer, and with renewed hope, they collected the seeds scattered on the ground. Back in my safe house, I relaxed. Finally, the community issues have been resolved. Next, I need to acquire Wang Siming's multi-billion safe house. I then asked Zhu Care to make dinner. I've been busy all day, and I'm famished. Without hesitation, Zhu Care started cooking. As I watched her elegant figure, I approached her with a teasing proposal. How about we have a child? Who knows how long the apocalypse will last? Having kids is a way to preserve our legacy. 2 hours later, I received a message from Su Hao. He had negotiated with Wang Siming and asked when we would execute our plan. I grinned in response. There's no hurry. Feel free to join me at my residence, and we can delve into the matter shortly thereafter. Su Hao made his way to my secure abode, and I reveled in the comforting ambience of my sanctuary. Gesturing for him to take a seat, I indicated our intention to discuss forthcoming plans. As Su Hao prepared to kneel and disclose the intricacies of his conversation with Wang Siming, I intervened with a hushing motion. No need for unnecessary complexities, just share the chat history between the two of you, I instructed calmly. Upon receiving this directive, Su Hao appeared uneasy, hesitating to produce his phone. My once amiable expression morphed into a stern countenance. Reluctant, aren't you? Is there something you're concealing? I queried, observing Su Hao's tight grip on his phone. Succumbing to impatience, I sternly remarked, "Must a proper conversation be so challenging? Or do I need to resort to more forceful measures?" Reluctantly, Suhao handed over his phone, pleading, "I did speak ill of you to Wang Siming, but it was all part of a ruse. I hope you won't take it personally, Brother Zhang." Swiftly taking the device, I scrutinized their chat history, discovering a 2-month-long communication between Suhao and Wang Siming. It became evident that Suhao initially sought Wang Siming's assistance in eliminating me, followed by a plan to seize my secure haven and resources. Astonishingly, Wang Siming harbored similar intentions. With a cold, knowing smile, I displayed the incriminating chat log to Suhao, questioning, "How do you plan to justify this? You played both sides with finesse." Caught in his duplicity, Suhao hastily raised his hand, insisting, "Brother Zhang, you've manipulated me too, right? We're in this together. Why would I betray you?" My response remained silent as I contemplated, rubbing my chin. Wang Siming's knowledge was limited to my snowmobile and visage, unaware of my full arsenal. Exploiting this intelligence gap could serve as an opportunity. Throwing the phone onto the table, I instructed Suhao, "Tell me everything about that shelter, particularly its weaponry and defenses. I want every detail." With a sense of relief, Suhao began divulging information, mentioning rumors about the shelter's construction using materials from a spaceship. The shelter stands as an impregnable fortress, virtually impenetrable save for missile attacks. Within its confines, an absence of conventional weapons is replaced by the presence of gas, wielded for the purpose of inducing hypnotic states. Entrances are fortified with searing high-temperature flamethrowers. Upon hearing Suhao's detailed account, Zhang Yi meticulously devised a strategy. Recognizing that his captor likely sought his vehicle and supplies, Zhang Yi reasoned that by withholding these possessions, his chances of survival increased. Anticipating potential torture, he resolved to preemptively conceal the snowmobile, adding an extra layer of defense. Although acknowledging the potential insignificance of his own life to Suhao, Zhang Yi surmised that the latter would refrain from lethal actions until securing the coveted snowmobile and supplies. Inquiring about additional offensive mechanisms within the shelter, Suhao, with a sly grin, asserted that the gas-induced hypnosis was the extent of it. The duo planned to feign susceptibility to the gas, navigate the traps, and incapacitate Suhao. Seated on the sofa, Zhang Yi contemplated how to nullify both the flames and gas, recognizing the need for a strategic advantage. An epiphany struck him: his latent space manipulation ability, capable of freezing time within an alternate dimension. Realizing its potential in battle, Zhang Yi resolved to explore this ability further. As Suhao eagerly awaited Zhang Yi's response, the latter conceded, instructing him to return temporarily, with a promise to contact him in a couple of days. However, Suhao, feigning urgency, claimed to be poisoned, pleading for a quicker resolution. Zhang Yi, dismissing the urgency, explained of 7-day incubation period for the poison, assuring Suhao of a prompt update within 2 or 3 days. Despite the plea, Zhang Yi ushered him out, emphasizing patience, with Suhao's parting reminder hanging in the air: a deadline of 7 days, adding an ominous tone to their impending encounter. After bidding farewell to Suhao, Zhang Yi scrutinized the unique ability in his possession. Beyond its apparent functions of supply storage and precision shooting, he pondered the untapped potential concealed within its depths. His primary focus, however, remained on harnessing this power to nullify the threat posed by both the flame and gas. Once this hurdle was overcome, controlling the timing of Wang's actions would be a straightforward task. Leaving the familiar confines of the living room, Zhang Yi entered an uninhabited residence, igniting a fire to put his ability to the test. Extending his right hand toward the flames, he activated his storage ability. The ground's fiery dance gradually converged towards him, prompting Zhang Yi to extend both palms, hastening the absorption process. In a matter of moments, the flames were completely assimilated into the alternate space. Surveying his hands with a sense of triumph, Zhang Yi marveled at the successful outcome. "I can't believe it actually worked," he mused. Eager to explore further, Zhang Yi extended his palms forward, attempting to release the stored fire. A resounding whoosh accompanied the instantaneous expulsion of the absorbed flames. Eyes widening in surprise, Zhang Yi erupted into joyous laughter. Reveling in this newfound discovery, he likened the alternate space to a divine defensive technique, transforming him into a jubilant child with a novel toy. Recognizing the potential to render future attacks futile, Zhang Yi envisioned mastering this power as a paramount asset for someone who valued survival above all else. However, a curious thought crossed his mind: what if he were to absorb a living person into this space? While he had experimented with a live fish for mere food storage purposes, the prospect of utilizing this ability in combat demanded a more daring experiment involving a living human subject. The surrounding onlookers, gripped by terror, reluctantly contributed a sacrifice, unaware of the uncertain fate awaiting them. Seizing the moment, Zhang Yi tossed the individual a stick, initiating a test to explore the combat capabilities of his alternate space. The man stood there, utterly bewildered, unable to summon the courage to confront Zhang Yi. Even if bravery surged within him, the idea of attacking Zhang Yi felt like a daunting impossibility. Observing the man's disbelief, Zhang Yi, with an air of confidence, declared of challenge. "If you manage to strike me with that stick just once, I'll reward you with a piece of bread," he offered. The mere mention of bread ignited a spark of hope in the man's eyes, and he eagerly accepted the challenge, seizing the stick without hesitation. In a moment that seemed almost too swift to comprehend, Zhang Yi activated his alternate space. Before the man could grasp the unfolding events, both he and the stick were drawn into the alternate dimension. Time appeared to freeze for the man, locked in a stance of attack, resembling an ice sculpture suspended in the void. Zhang Yi, curious yet cautious, checked the man's pulse. Astonished, he discovered that the man's breathing and heartbeat had ceased. The question lingered: had he inadvertently caused the man's demise? With a casual wave of his hand, Zhang Yi expelled the man from the alternate space. The man emerged, panting heavily, his countenance reflecting the terror of narrowly escaping death. Zhang Yi, undeterred by the man's distress, inquired about his experience. Sweating profusely, the man recounted feeling as though he had entered a desolate, timeless realm, an experience that terrified him to the core. Zhang Yi grasped the significance. Time within the alternate space elapsed at a considerably slower rate than in the outside world. Recognizing the potential danger of prolonged exposure, Zhang Yi understood that living beings couldn't endure an extended stay. Contemplating this limitation, he pondered an alternative experiment: disassembling tissues rather than absorbing living beings. Without hesitation, Zhang Yi seized the hand of the sacrifice, swiftly slicing off 2 fingers. The man's anguished screams filled the air, yet Zhang Yi remained indifferent to his suffering. What intrigued him was the revelation that, contrary to living beings, severed fingers could endure the alternate space. This newfound knowledge prompted further inquiry into the underlying principles. Tossing some gauze to the man, Zhang Yi urged him to bandage himself. With an air of anticipation, he hinted at the continuation of their experiment. "Once you're done, we'll proceed with a new test. This time, you'll hurl something at me," Zhang Yi declared, eager to unravel more mysteries surrounding his extraordinary ability. Following numerous experiments utilizing the man as a test subject, Zhang Yi attained a more comprehensive understanding of the capabilities of his alternate space. Recognizing that he had previously underutilized its potential by merely using it for storage, Zhang Yi envisioned a broader application. His newfound insight revealed that his power could establish a connection between the real world and the alternate space, allowing him to deflect incoming attacks and redirect them towards his adversaries. The man, now relishing the food that Zhang Yi had generously rewarded him with, expressed his gratitude between hearty bites. This meal marked the first substantial sustenance he had enjoyed since the onset of the apocalypse. Smiling at the man, Zhang Yi advised him to savor the food slowly, lifting the man's spirits. In a gesture of gratitude, the man pledged his loyalty to Zhang Yi, offering assistance in exchange for sustenance. Before he could finish his sentence, Zhang Yi swiftly incapacitated him. The man crumpled to the ground, blood pooling around him. Zhang Yi, maintaining his composure, informed the fallen man that he no longer required his services, urging him to move on. As the man closed his eyes with a contented smile, he embraced the freedom from hunger and suffering that had plagued him in the post-apocalyptic world. Without looking back, Zhang Yi walked away, mindful that time was of the essence for his impending rendezvous with Su Hao. Days later, Su Hao knelt before Zhang Yi. pleading for assistance in the impending attack on Wang Simon's sanctuary. The poison forcibly injected by Zhang Yi was taking a toll on Su Hao's body, prompting urgency in their actions. Zhang Yi, observing Su Hao's deteriorating condition, found a twisted amusement in the unintended consequences of the lie he had casually fabricated. The psychological suggestion had evidently tormented Su Hao. Nonchalantly, Zhang Yi proposed a temporary solution by offering an antidote to alleviate Su Hao's symptoms. However, he made it clear that if a cure wasn't found within 5 days, Su Hao's fate was sealed. Urgently, Su Hao rolled up his sleeves, expressing his inability to wait another minute. The stage was set for a race against time, entwining their destinies in the pursuit of survival amidst the chaos of their post-apocalyptic reality. Faced with the looming threat of impending demise, Su Hao implored Zhang Yi for the life-saving injection. As the needle penetrated his skin, Zhang Yi skillfully intertwined the physical act with continued psychological manipulation. The urgency of their shared mission was emphasized, success was imperative, and failure held dire consequences for both of them. Empowered by newfound confidence, Su Hao pledged unwavering dedication, assuring Zhang Yi that he was prepared to confront any danger on their behalf. With determination in his eyes, Su Hao reached for his phone, ready to initiate contact with Wang Simon to arrange a meeting time. Expressing readiness to adhere to Zhang Yi's plan, Su Hao's commitment seemed resolute. However, Zhang Yi, concealing a subtle smirk, harbored suspicions about potential tricks. After seeing Su Hao off, Zhang Yi embarked on the task of packing his bags, leaving Shu Qier in a state of bewilderment. Most issues within their community had been resolved, making her question the necessity of venturing out again, especially with such extensive luggage. The enigmatic nature of Zhang Yi's plan left her with a sense of uncertainty, and she refrained from probing further. As Zhang Yi prepared to depart, Shu Qier's anxiety heightened, fearing abandonment. Clinging tightly to him, she grappled with the idea of being left behind. Zhang Yi, amused by her concern, reassured her with a playful pinch of her chin. While expressing his desire to spend more time with her under different circumstances, he kissed her and advised her to behave during his absence, hinting at the profound changes that awaited them upon the mission's completion. Exiting the dwelling and mounting the snowmobile, Zhang Yi produced a rope, surprising Su Hao with a display of mistrust. Attempting to justify his actions, Zhang Yi explained that he intended to showcase their seemingly strained relationship to Wang Simon. Tying up Su Hao to create a convincing facade, they set out on the snowmobile, the biting northern wind harshly assaulting Su Hao's face. Despite his discomfort, Su Hao's request for a helmet was met with a dismissive chuckle from Zhang Yi, who insisted on enduring the elements without protection. Furthermore, the more destitute your appearance, the more compelling the charade will be, Zhang Yi remarked with a disdainful snort as they approached Yankei Mountain Villa. Observing the opulent villas nestled amidst the picturesque scenery of rivers and mountains, Zhang Yi couldn't help but marvel at their superiority over other high-end residences. The natural terrain transformed this locale into a snow paradise, with minimal snow accumulation, a stark contrast to the harsh conditions elsewhere. Reflecting on his misguided assumption that the apocalypse would narrow the wealth gap, Zhang Yi acknowledged the enduring power of money. Su Hao, trailing behind, added his voice to the conversation, asserting that money now held as much value as discarded paper. He complimented Zhang Yi's enviable lifestyle, prompting a smile from the latter. A good compliment indeed. Let's keep moving, Zhang Yi urged, leading the way towards the villa complex. Su Hao, perplexed by the decision to walk instead of utilizing the snowmobile, voiced his confusion, only to be met with a curt response from Zhang Yi. "We're walking. That's it. Stop talking." Arriving at Lark Manor, Zhang Yi and Su Hao inadvertently attracted the attention of the community's neighbors. Among them, a well-dressed and curvaceous woman, grappling with dwindling supplies and depleting heat, focused intently on the duo through her window. Desperate for assistance, she pondered ways to communicate with the men outside and secure sustenance. At the entrance of Wang's signing residence, Zhang Yi brandished his weapon, pointing it menacingly at Su Hao's head. The urgency of their mission was palpable as Zhang Yi coerced Su Hao into swiftly gaining entry. Su Hao, undeterred, rushed to the security camera, beseeching Wang's signing to open the door. Meanwhile, Wang Xining, comfortably sipping 1982 Lafai and observing the security monitor, questioned the unexpected visit, contemplating whether he was being deceived. Unable to spot the promised snowmobile, suspicion grew. As Zhang Yi's impatience escalated, he resorted to threatening Su Hao with a weapon, heightening the tension of their encounter. "Oh no. If you even try to deceive me, rest assured, I will shoot you without hesitation," Su Hao exclaimed with frustration as sweat poured down his face. "Please, brother Zhang, I would never dare to deceive you, even if I had the bravery to attempt it," he pleaded. Turning towards the camera, Su Hao whispered to Wang's silent communication, "We have put in so much effort for this. We cannot afford to fail now. If we miss this opportunity, there won't be another chance." Seeking reassurance, Su Hao hoped that they would not betray him. Meanwhile, Wang's silent response was to activate a mechanism that would completely obliterate them, leaving no trace behind in case of a double cross. With a deep breath, Wang pressed the button to unlock the main entrance of the lavish villa. Zhang Yi and Su Hao stepped into the sprawling space, their jaws dropping with awe. "Wow, wealthy individuals are truly on another level," they exclaimed, astounded by the multitude of entertainment options available. Su Hao gestures towards the passage up ahead and suggests to Zhang Yi that they proceed. He informs Zhang Yi that there is an additional door inside, which, once opened, will grant them access to the shelter. Zhang Yi agrees to follow Su Hao closely. Unbeknownst to them, Wang, who is monitoring the situation through surveillance cameras, notices that Zhang Yi has entered the dangerous area and decides to trigger his trap without any hesitation. Suddenly, exhaust ports positioned above the corridor open up, leaving both Zhang Yi and Su Hao startled. Wang cleverly aims to ensnare them both using this trap. In an instant, a suffocating gas is released from the ventilation pipes. Su Hao swiftly shields his nose and mouth to protect himself, but Zhang Yi remains composed as he has already planned his countermeasure. Wang then activates the tear gas mechanism, resulting in a thick cloud of smoke enveloping Zhang Yi and Su Hao. The two are fully committed to their plan to deceive Wang's Xining. Zhang Yi angrily shouts at Su Hao, referring to him as a disrespectful piece of turd.